first time ever.
Hear you loud and clearly.
And it was going place.
That stuff's great.
But the game is not a roguelike.
Boomer shooter.
Bang.
Hello, this is John St. John, and you're listening to KWEP In the Keep, bringing you all the hits from the finest in the world of gaming and entertainment. Now sit back and relax as the drowned god Cthulhu lulls your mind with the tastiest talk in town.
Welcome to another chapter of In the Keep podcast. I'm your very own prophet of the drowned god, the Motherlode. The Keep is a collective of gaming enthusiasts compelled by the drowned god Cthulhu to frag and jib one another into oblivion for all eternity. Hello, folks. It's good to be back in the Keep. Welcome. This week's guest is none other than the one and only Bridgeburner. It has been a long time coming. I'm very proud to present this to you. I will warn you ahead of time. Tried a new recording method for the show. It crashed about 30 minutes into the recording, so I didn't have any good audio for it on my end. So I asked Bridgeburner to pick it up on his end and send it to me. I did my best. There is some pretty strong echo with my voice that I've done everything that I can to kind of mitigate. It's not going to go away completely, but I genuinely hope that it doesn't bother you too much and you're able to enjoy this wonderful conversation with Bridgeburner, because I think he's incredible and it would be such a shame to throw it all out at this point. That said, this is a really good interview, like for real. We talk about a lot of stuff. We talk about, how he got into mapping, all the Cacowards that he swept up this past year, the behind what will ultimately become Hellforge Studios, all the other great maps that are going on out there, a lot of great creators and everything, people that he's collaborated with. We're going to talk about heavy metal. We're going to talk about religion. This is a diverse, long interview. It's about 2.5 hours long, so I'm not going to bore you too much right up here up front. Just kick back, enjoy this wonderful music by Primeval. This is from the Age of Hell soundtrack. I hope you enjoy it, and when it is over, you will be in the Keep with Bridgeburner. This is a great moment for me on the podcast because I have been trying to get Bridgeburner on the show for quite a long time. Not like actively, I just like knew I wanted to do it. and finally it's happening. So, in a strange turn of events, the way I planned this, Bridge, was for it to be in the evening for you and the morning for me. Because you're in New Zealand, I'm in the United States of America. And I really wanted it to be like you show up and you're like all chipper and like your evening self for the stream. And I'm totally cool, chill, relaxed. But how it ended up working out, because you got a fucking cold, was, all right, we catch Motherload in the evening, and Motherload's had a few drinks, and Bridgeburner's going to show up after a nice day at the gym, just working out and getting all fucking fit and shit. And here we are. It's going to be a totally different dynamic than what I prepared for.
Here we are.
Let's go.
No, thanks for having me on.
How the fuck are you?
Oh, I'm very fucking good. Yeah, excited about this. I think it's going to be fun. Drunk Motherload is always good Motherload.
Well, we're not quite there yet, but by the time this is over, we'll see what happens. As opposed to the New Year's stream that you promised would be, okay, it'll be 2 hours.
Yeah, a
2.5
couple hours.
hours.
Five fucking hours.
5 hours later, I'm trying to interview. But actually, Spud Hunter is one of the people that I have like long since wanted on the show. Like, I've always wanted to interview Spud Hunter since at least 2 years, and by the time it happens, it's New Year's Eve. So I've had a few drinks, and B, I am tired.
What time was that for you?
Dead. Huh?
What time was that for you?
I have no idea.
Very fucking late. Yeah.
It was a complete. I knew I had. So I told you I had New Year's Eve off, but I had to work on New Year's Day. So I was trying to line my schedule up so that I could have fun on New Year's Eve, but still be in bed on time.
Did not happen. No, you did well. You held it together for just enough, I think, to keep it together to the end. Just fading there a little bit. It was great.
That clip will haunt me to the end of time for sure. But that's
Perfect.
okay. You know what? It's not your fault. It's not. Well, it's my fault. Actually, it is 100% my fault. But I'm so excited to interview. Like, this is one of the moments that I've been kind of like in my head preparing for a long time. And you cleaned up the Cacowards this year, like top to bottom, pretty much. Like, I can't even think. Has anyone ever won more Cacowards in 1 year than you have?
May possibly, but yeah, it's definitely a rarity. I think normally they like giving Creator of the Year to, like last year they gave it to Akira, who made OTX last year before. So they give it to someone who isn't normally eligible or has won Cacowards in the past. Well, let's recognise this person's contributions. I think it is kind of unusual to kind of collect that kind of clean sweep kind of thing happening. But yeah, like it's still a slightly surreal moment for me. Only being really involved in the Doom community for a few years now, and yeah, kind of climbed the peak, as it were.
We're gonna dig into that topic more as we go, because it's a big topic for me, and actually, I think some of the people listening will resonate with that. But first of all, I want to say, like, this year, of all the issues that I may have with the Cacowards, they made one fantastic choice, other than you. I mean, you're a great choice, obviously, but James Quasar Haley definitely deserved his award. Lifetime achievement.
Yeah.
Like, that guy has been flying under the radar for so fucking long, and what he's been on the show before, very briefly. Like, he's one of those, like, just introverted people. Like, an interview with him is kind of like pulling it out of you. Like, please just say what's on your mind, kind of thing. But it absolutely deserved everything that he got, and should be awarded 10 times over, I think. But
yeah, and
just the shit he's done.
They do often make good calls with the ESPYs. Like, they do try and recognise people who have been those quiet achievers a lot of the time. Like even Jimmy, who got it last year. Like, he's got a recognisable body of work, but he is a very down-to-earth, humble person. I think historically, like the ESPY awards have really felt really deserving, really worthy. Like, you can't really argue about them. It's like, no, that's fair enough. Like, I don't know a huge amount about Quasar, but I have heard the name, and I know they've contributed a lot. And even I thought, like, yeah, that's fair enough. You know, that definitely was one.
Quasar, he works for my buddy Steve McKick over at Night Dive Studios, right? So the recent Doom 64 port was in large part Quasar's work, amongst many, many other things in the Doom community. But like that was kind of the thing that when that came out, like that particular port of Doom 64, bringing it to the vast audience that it did.
Well, got me into it.
And we got to give credit to Kaiser too. Kaiser is probably the most creditable person over there at Night Dive, but just the vast time that he's spent in the Doom community doing what he's done, I couldn't think of anyone that like deserves like you should be credited. Like maybe even not like a lifetime achievement award. I don't give a fuck what it is, but like his name
some
should
sort of
be
recognition.
Yeah. And I'm sure it is. He's probably got like dozens of WAD awards in there that I'm not aware of or whatever. But yeah, super cool. And to have your name tacked on to that list of amazing people is, I mean, whatever you think about the Cacowards,
it's a big deal. It is.
It belongs there. It belongs there.
And like, you know, I've always, because I've known about the Cacowards for a long time, you know, for over a decade or so, and I've played a lot of the winners back, you know, in the early 2000s and stuff when I was playing a lot of Doom. And it was always something that I thought would be pretty cool if I ever got one. But it's never been like a huge driving force for me as nabbing that award. And like if Bastion hadn't got one this year, I'd have been a little bit disappointed. But it wouldn't have crippled me. Like it wouldn't have crushed my will to live. Even not having that really like hard focus on it, it's still a big fucking deal. And like I told my younger brother about it when it happened, and he was like, "Oh, the Cacowards!" Like he's in no way ultra into classic Doom, but you know, it thousands of people read those, thousands and thousands. It's big news when they come out, and a lot of people pay attention to it. So yeah, it's very cool.
I mean, it's not like the biggest deal in the world as far as like award shows go, but to boil it down to like why I think it's important, you are in an elite class now with what will go down in gaming history. And the reason why I believe this, and I tried to explain this to Arlene, and I don't know that she totally like took away what I was trying to say, is that when people get into Doom and they find out that there's this whole Doom modding community, you know, they go on YouTube and they find people like Icarus, right? And shout out to Icarus. Hope to have him on the show someday. But you know, they're like, how do I play all these amazing, you know, modded maps and total conversions? How do I
the Cacowards? Go start here. Like here is your baseline.
Go look at Doom World. Yeah. Go look at Doom World.
It is the gateway.
And
yeah.
Once you're in that club, you're in that club forever. Like, until the grid goes down and
no, it is definitely a lot of people's starting points. And I remember when I was, you know, getting it first discovered Doom World and working through the Cacowards, I think the 10 years of Doom had just come out around then, and just like trawling. Like, not you don't like everything, but it is the perfect place to start, and you pretty much guarantee that you'll find, no matter what the tastes are, you'll find some shit that you like and really enjoy. And even just reading and looking at the screenshots and going, yeah, fuck, that's really cool. So many people just, that is their first introduction to classic Doom after they've played, the IWADs. And like, what's next? Oh, we better start here. It does get you a fair amount of exposure, shall we say, having a name on that list.
So let's get on the unicycle of time here and backpedal a little bit. When did young? Can I call you Anthony, or do you just want to be Bridgeburner?
I think Bridge. It's like, Anthony's my real name, but I think Bridge is becoming my alter ego, and I do actually think of myself a lot as Bridgeburner in this context, and I think that'll probably become a lot of like almost a professional name for me. Let's go with that.
We'll stick with Bridgeburner. And so, when did young Bridgeburner first discover Doom, and what was that experience like?
So I have told the story a few times. It's a good one, actually. I think. So my parents are actually semi-gamers. Like there were computer games in my house when I was growing up because mum and dad liked playing computer games, and like Civilization was a big part of. Both mum and dad really liked that game, grand strategy stuff. And so there was, I grew up in a household that was very open to gaming, and it was never a thing that I had to push for, which was really cool. And real-time strategy was my dad's real passion, and he's a big fan of the book Dune. So when Dune 2 came out, it was like mum was like, "We're going to get that for dad for his birthday," and she didn't quite get it right. She got Doom by accident. So she goes out just by Doom sounds about the same. So this must be the right game. Big game on the shelf. And I came home with that. Dad opens up, so he's like, "What's this?" Just like, yeah. And so we, as if everyone in my family played Doom for a little bit, including mum. I don't think it was quite a thing, but that was my that was Doom 1, and I remember got snippets of memories when I was like 8 or 10 or something like that, playing that, and I didn't I wasn't obsessed with it. I didn't get pulled into it, but that was my first exposure to Doom and FPS gaming. I thought, this is pretty cool. But I like my parents that strategy games were more my shtick when I was younger, and RTS was kind of like my first love. Your Command and Conquers and Warcraft, although I wasn't a huge fan of Blizzard. I was more of a Westwood Studios fanboy, and Dune 2 was still one of the greatest RTS ever made, despite all its clunky features. But thinking back, I was like, that's pretty funny. So that was my first exposure to Doom, and while it wasn't a really seminal moment, it was the kind of the seed that was planted.
It's really interesting because I know about you that you're an avid reader, and I know that a lot of what is you comes from being a reader. And is that kind of inspired by your dad?
Yeah, again, so mum and dad, huge readers. Just they weren't pushy about it. Like my parents, huge amount of respect for my parents for how they raised us kids, and there's 5 of us, so we're a big family, and they didn't push ideas on us. They didn't say, "We want you to go to university, or I want you to study this, or we want you to read lots." It's just they just made an environment where it was there and openly done. So parents have hundreds of books. So again, I grew up in a household that read a lot of books, lots of fantasy and sci-fi, and that's still my passion in terms of reading. Mum and dad listened to a lot of music, so I grew up listening to lots of music, and again, music is a passion. So I can actually trace a lot of my interests back to what mum and dad did when I was growing up, and it was just in the house. So while it wasn't, "Here is a book, you must read it," there was definitely a lot of reading in my home growing up, and it really made an impact. I was like, mum and dad do a lot of this reading thing, maybe I should read. And in my tastes definitely are similar to them. So I grew up reading things like Orson Scott Card and Greg Beale as kind of like great 90s sci-fi writers. Dad read me The Hobbit when I was 4, which was a bold move as a parent. "Oh, read my kid a story. The Hobbit." The first chapter, the idea was like he read a chapter every time he sat down. The first chapter is like 40 fucking pages long or something. And every time we talk about it, he says, "I regretted it like 5 pages in," but to his credit, I stuck with it and got through it. And that instilled a love of fantasy in me. And can't really go wrong with starting with a bit of Tolkien there. I think that's definitely had a big impact on me. Particularly the fantasy stuff. I fucking love that.
Yeah, I've got to keep in mind to some extent that this is an interview, but also talk about myself a little bit. I had the opposite experience, right? So my parents were not readers or gamers of any kind. Well, I should say my dad was very much into games, but console gaming, not the same kind of shit that we're into now. So, the old Motherlode legend is how my dad introduced me to Duke Nukem by playing Time to Kill. But with reading, it would happen like this. My parents would, I would be in trouble because I was a really shitty kid sometimes. And I'm sure my mom will listen to this at some point and be like, "Oh no, you were perfect," but she knows that's not true. And
we were all shitty kids at some time.
she would ground me. You're grounded from video games, you're grounded from TV, you're grounded from fucking everything.
Yep.
and she'll tell this story to this day. If you talk to my mother, these probably been the first story she told you. She'd ground me from everything, and I'd be like, "Cool, I'm gonna go read a book and fuck you." Like,
it's like, get sent to your room. I'm okay with that. I got books in there. I'll be fine. I'll see you in a couple hours.
yeah, so, I mean, I had a pretty high reading level. Like I was reading, Lemony Snicket was really cool when I was like that age, and but like classics. Like I read like The Time Machine. I read Moby Dick. Like that kind of shit.
I read a bit of that when I was a kid. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
And Moby Dick
that's a heavy
contrary to popular. That's a comedy. I feel like people don't get it. Moby Dick is not a serious book. It is 100% a comedy.
I think more like
getting
into the writing style. It's very weighty prose.
Yeah.
Because I tried to read Charles Dickens when I was a kid because I'd heard about Dickens as this great writer. My parents had a couple like Tale of Two Cities and a couple others on their shelf, and I got maybe a paragraph, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? People read this? This is garbage." But it was just like the style of the writing was just so dripping with portentous foreboding, and I like ominous. It's just like, no, this is too clunky.
It was in a time when there were no distractions, right? Like, it's just either read this book or fucking light a candle. And just sit there.
Pretty much.
Like,
read this book or die on the plague. These are your choices. Because I tried to read Victor Hugo as well and had a similar experience, who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I was like, I got maybe 50 pages, and I was like, no, I can't do this.
The move is to find the classics that Christopher Lee read, because he did some great ones, man. He did Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, it's good.
Which is a really hard book to voice act for, because it requires like in one scene you have a Texas accent, a Dutch accent, like an English guy. Like, it's like fucking good luck. But Christopher Lee's the legend.
It's fucking awesome.
So like he knocked it out of the park. But we didn't come here to talk about literature, Bridge. We came here to talk about you. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I've gotten to know you pretty well over the past few months, and I gotta admit, like, I've never been compelled by streaming. Like, I've always thought, like, watching people play video games is fucking stupid. I even kind of thought that about people who watch me play video games. I don't mean that as an insult. It's just like, that's how I really feel.
No,
like,
it is a bit of a ridiculous conceit. I definitely agree. Because I grew up, that is not a thing. Definitely not. And people joked about, like, a job as a video game player. Like, there's Gary Larson cartoons around it that I remember laughing at as a kid. Like literal comics about professional gamers as a complete, like, piss take, complete satire. And, like, here we are now, 25 years later, and it's just like, this is actually a legitimate career for it. That is a strange thing. It's like, I'm going to watch people play computer games. Very odd.
I mean, even as an avid gamer, as someone who makes their fucking money off of talking about video games, I still mostly feel that way. Like, it's just like, I don't want to watch some motherfucker just like I'm quirky and play games. Like, I'll just play the game. I remember visiting a really good friend of mine, and his son had this amazing. He's a pretty rich guy. He worked for Intel and some big tech companies. He had the biggest train, like, just classic train set you ever saw in your life.
Nice.
And his son, instead of playing with the fucking train set, would just, like, be on his tablet watching some other kid play with the same exact goddamn train set. I'm like, what is this?
You have the train.
Here's that.
That's quite strange.
Your stream is one that I genuinely tune in for. And, I mean, like, you've kind of ruined a lot of my creative life over the past few months, because I'm like, I should be doing shit, but I want to hang out with Bridgeburner. Like, I'll dip out on people. I'll be like in the middle of something. I'll be like, no, Bridge is on stream. I got to go watch that. Like, I'm going to go hang out over there.
Both apologetic and pleased.
So how did you get into the streaming game? What made you kind of take that step?
Yeah, it was quite an odd one, actually. So, because like you, I never really watched much streamers or YouTube casting up until maybe about 4 years ago. Because I do like it as a background noise when I'm mapping or playing another game. Like, playing like grindy ARPGs were my thing for like fucking forever since Diablo came out. I love ARPG games. and they're a bit monotonous. Like that's part of the mechanics, so it's good to have something distracting on while you're grinding loot or farming experience or whatever. So you chuck a YouTube video on, and I just kind of like started watching a bit of StarCraft casting or something like that, and then that looped into watching like some Doom speed runs and UV Max runs, and people who are good at classic Doom. And there's another thread to that story as well. But that got me into Twitch. It's like, okay, these names that I recognize on the YouTube, they also stream. And I can't remember exactly how I first found my first stream, but that started me down that path, and I'd be doing something else and watching a streamer. And I would just lurk and have them as background noise. And then I think it might have been John Sweetpea, maybe, the first one that I actually engaged in. Pretty cool British dude.
That was a job.
Yeah. And,
Still
still streaming, still awesome. He started engaging, and it's just like, well, this is pretty fun. And that was about the time I started getting into mapping again as well. So after a long hiatus, and the idea there was just a seed that planted into my head like late 2018. I wonder if people would like to watch me map, because Dragonfly in that year did a lot of mapping streams. So I watched a fair amount of him. And there are a couple other people that don't stream anymore that did a bit of mapping, so they do mapping on stream. And I'd gotten balls deep into mapping at that point again, and it's just a light bulb, tiny little light bulb went into my head. I was like, fuck, I wonder if I should try this, because I am quite introverted. It was a very weird idea for me to have, and I have no background in it. I've never been in a fucking voice chat or nothing like that ever before at that point. New to Discord then, just getting involved in the Doom community through that, and this little idea, and it just sat there, just ticking over for a few weeks, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to buy a webcam and a mic and see how this goes. Just give it a shot. Costs you nothing. Costs you nothing but your pride, bit of time to get involved, and set up my first stream. And at that point, I'd made a few kind of like casual friends via Discord, so it helped having even just a small handful of people come and watch that first stream. And I went for 7 hours. I was like, I obviously enjoyed that. So it just felt really natural to me for some reason, just because when I map, I have this constant kind of stream of consciousness in my head when I'm doing stuff, and a pretty hyperactive imagination. So it was just a case of decanting my thoughts and actually speaking them out loud as I was mapping. So the whole interacting thing, while I'm not a big extroverted bubbly character, it just felt quite easy to vocalize what I was doing, and it was just a lot of fun. And it was still pretty stop-start initially. I probably streamed 3 times in a month, and then I went for a couple of months not doing much, and just it was. But I came back to it even after into 2018 was a little bit of a rough patch, and it was after that I was like, no, let's give this another shot. And 2018 was good fun, and got into a bit of a regular rhythm, streaming on the weekends, the odd midweek stream, and it culminated in the first of the 24-hour streams, which is a dumb idea that I got on my head for 2019. It's like, fuck it, if we get to 500 followers by the end of this year, we're going to do a 24-hour stream. And it was pretty touch and go whether I was going to get to the number. And big shout out to Dracu, the speedrunner, because I was mentioned in his... I think he saw a tweet. That's fucking massive character. He's awesome dude as well, really lovely.
Did the amazing 2016 Doom runs.
Yeah, and Doom 3. He had the record for Doom 3 for a while, I think. And I think he got wind of it via a tweet, and he raided me once and said, follow Bridge, so he has to stream for 24 hours. And then I went and watched the streamer a few days later, and said thanks for the raid, man. And he said, have you got to 500? I was like, a couple off. And he went over and followed me to tip me over to 500. And it's like, I'm going to do it. So huge shout out for Dracu, because not only because that was just a really nice gesture, but I think that was a real high point for me, that stream. That was a heap of fun. It's still one of the most popular streams in terms of view numbers that I've had. Absolute blast. And I think that experience, I actually really enjoy this. And then 2020, despite being a bit of a clusterfuck for a lot of people, things that having lockdowns meant that I could focus on a lot of streaming, and work was really quiet, so I could focus on a lot of streaming. And this year, I almost cracked 1,500 hours of streaming, which is 26 or 27 hours average a week, which is, when you think about having a job on the side of that, that's a lot. So this year in particular, I've really committed to a very pretty strict schedule, like regular kind of streams on different days of the week. Like Tuesday's my playtesting stream, and a few more events. We're doing the speed mapping. We did the 24-hour stream again, and it started from a really random thought and turned into something that I absolutely love. It's just a hell of a lot of fun. But the other part of it, and I sort of just mentioned this, and one of the other things that I found, I've talked about this with other people, and Eris has just started streaming and found the same thing, is streaming when I'm mapping makes me unbelievably productive. If I'm just mapping, YouTube happens and I go get some food and I start reading the news, or I just get distracted all the fucking time. But if I'm streaming, I can't not map. I have to. Like, there's an audience, there's people watching here. They're expecting me to do this. Yeah. It's like an external pressure source. It's almost like an authority telling me you must map, and it focuses me. And I think that's a big part of why I've been so productive, and a big part of why I make myself stream is because I know it's good for me in terms of output, as well as being fun. So there's a great synergy there for me personally with mapping and streaming. It really gets me throwing those lines down.
I think that's a fundamental difference between you and I, as we found many over our few months together. I literally hate streaming. I hate it. Like, I can't. I love like the fact that it exists. I love being part of it. Like, I like shoutcasting for multiplayer events. Like, that's really fun for me. But I find the act of streaming to be so exhausting. Like, it just drains me socially. And to see guys like you, like people that I'm fans of, 40 Lions, that can just do it and just go, is it's almost like watching an Olympic athlete. Like, from my perspective, I'm like, how could you possibly exert that much energy? And I know you have your little tips and tricks. Like, I know that you kind of like lower down the Discord chat and kind of like have that audible but not fully in your scope of what you're doing. But I am curious, like, how do you maintain the energy to do something like that?
I think it's because it is weird, because like I said before, I am largely introverted. I don't like going out. It takes too much energy. Like, you're kind of like yourself, social situations are I find kind of tiring, particularly big ones. A few friends kind of thing is my kind of social situation, but I can easily like stay inside for a week and read. So it was weird. I think, I don't know. I actually don't know. I think it's quite strange that how much I enjoy it, but I do really enjoy it. And when I have fun, when I'm enjoying something, I put an inordinate amount of energy into it, and I can kind of like ride the high. And yeah, you'll see my weekend streams go for 12 hours plus on a regular basis, which is quite unusual for any streamer like that. And yeah, I'll be tired by the end of it, but I'll have the energy to go again the next day and the next week. And I think it is just, I have so much fun that gives me energy. And yeah, it's kind of strange, to be honest. But I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to harness it.
I think you should take the ball and run.
Yeah,
and at this point, in kind of transition the conversation into your productivity, because we've talked a little bit about the fact that you map, but let's start from the beginning. Like, when did you first start mapping? Because we got to see the retrospective, at least your closest fans, in the 24-hour stream. Like, this is where Bridge started to where you are now. But where did mapping become an interest for you? And then we'll kind of work our way up to like where you are now.
Yeah, so we talked to the question about where I started with Doom and what was my first experience. Between that, there was a big gap, probably 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Yeah, and a friend I made at high school, who still friends with me, who's in the Discord, goes by the name of Zevran. There, he's my dungeon master for D&D. We've got D&D sessions tonight. Yeah, one of my closest friends. Been friends with him for 20 years, and he's always been a big fan of Doom. He probably up until recent, the last 10 years, I'd say he was much more into Doom than I was. Certainly as a teenager, and like he bases D&D maps on Doom maps from like the Living End from Doom 2 and stuff like that, and like it was obsessed with the music and knew like which ones were covers of real metal songs, because he was a big metalhead as well. He actually got me into metal, and so very cool guy, and so he got me back into Doom. He introduced me to Doom 2, because before, well, that had been about, I guess, 1998-ish. I hadn't played Doom 2 before, and so he introduced me to that. I'd go around to his house and we'd play Doom, and we'd do things like set up, put on God mode, go into the Icon of Sin map and just see how many monsters could spawn, and like try and manipulate it so different enemies would kind of own the various tiers. Like we'll get the Mancubus to win that tier, and then the Hell Knights can be on that tier, and yeah, just like stupid bullshit like that. It was great fun. But he discovered an editor called Deepsea, which is precursor to Doom Builder, but kind of after the real DOS-based stuff that like Death and like those really old school editors that are very hard to use. Deepsea was the precursor to Doom Builder, which is been continued through to this day and is like the premier editor. So it was the first one where that kind of layout with the way that it works is still essentially the same kind of base concepts to the modern editors today. And there's this, you can get it for free. Cool, let's grab that. And like he was like, I want to make a Doom map. I was like, well, that's fucking cool. And I watched him make a Doom map. And I was like, well, I'm going to try that as well. And yeah, we started like just fucking around and making really, really shitty maps, as people do when they first start doing it. And it was just for us. So the idea was to play with this for ourselves and not to make maps for the community to play, because we didn't even know it existed. And it was like another game to play for your own personal enjoyment. So I'm going to make a Doom map and then I'm going to play it, and then you can play it, and that'll be the end of it. But the shareware version of Deepsea had limitations, so you could only make 800-line maps, because that was back in the days when shareware was a thing, and you had to buy the full version of Deepsea, which to us seemed normal. I was like, okay, fair enough, commercial product, I guess, and it was $15, and we went halves, and it came in the mail on a fucking floppy disk, a 3 1/4 inch floppy disk. And yeah, it was like, oh, here it is. And sure enough, it had an exe file on it, and you copied that over, and it removed all the limitations. And all of a sudden, we could make much bigger maps. And I think about that point, he started to drop off and went back to playing probably Diablo 2 at that time. Was the big game around then, I think. And but I got deeper into it, and I started making more maps, and very quickly got into the idea of, let's try and make a megawad. And again, just for myself, I just thought this was fun, and I just started ticking away and making maps. And I probably kept that up for a year or so, just as a fun thing. And then, got distracted by a different game and stopped using it. So that was like my first foray into mapping, and like I said, it was all about just like personal enjoyment. And I think that has informed a lot of why I map now as well. Because of the way that I started it, I still primarily do it because I enjoy it. There was like another resurgence of mapping about 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly why I decided to go back and look at my old maps, but it's like, we'll get back into this. And that lasted for a few years, and that was around the time Doom Builder 2 was out. So I started with the Deepsea, and then I thought, there's actually this new thing called Doom Builder. Ooh, we'll grab that. Oh, there's Doom Builder 2. So I moved that and made some stuff that you could probably recognize some of my current style in. And we did cover that off in the retrospective. There's one map in particular that I still look back and I'm really proud of that. But I hit there was a side def limit, so essentially a mapping size limit built into Doom Builder, and I hit that, and my map was nowhere near finished. Like, okay, fuck this. I'm not rebuilding shit. It was essentially, I was probably burning out anyway, but that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and I was like, all right, we're going to go play Path of Exile for the next 6 years. So those were kind of like two kind of like main stints, I think, at kind of attempts at mapping. But at no point during those did I ever think to engage in a community. And while that was a kind of a source of strength in a way, mapping for yourself, it meant I got no feedback, positive or negative, constructive, whatever. There was no external drive. And so when I kind of started to lose interest, that interest just waned and dropped off. And like I said, if I'm enjoying something, I'll keep doing it. But if that enjoyment kind of tapers off, then I'll lose interest very quickly. And it didn't seem like something that I would use later. Like it was now I've got other goals, other intrinsic driving factors. But at the time, it was just another game to play. So that was why I have these like long kind of times in the wilderness, I guess, historically. So I technically have been mapping for probably close to 20 years now, but I haven't been mapping that whole time. I don't have 20 years of experience under the belt.
What's interesting is the start transition. It's not that you like done it for so long. Like there's lots of stories like, I garnered an early interest and then I walked away from it and then I did something else. Like that's pretty normal. What's abnormal about it is the fact that when you came back like as if you had an amount of experience that you objectively did not have, right? So to jump straight into kind of like the Bastion, what were the things that led up to Bastion of Chaos? Like, how did you go from this pretty normal experimental projects to releasing something that was game changing? I mean, I don't think anyone would even argue with that.
Yeah, so part of that. So early 2018 was when I got the bug back, and we're talking about streamers before, and it was actually watching Doom streamers, and then watching Dragonfly Matt, and like getting people still play classic Doom. I had no idea. Twitch has its issues. It's not a perfect company by any means, not even fucking close. But it's what it's done for small gaming communities and like kind of like niche culty followings is fucking massive. It's drawn people together. And Discord's done the same thing. Yes, there's always been Doomworld, but Doomworld's an odd beast. But Twitch and Discord's much more relaxed, very chill, very open. You can go hang out, watch this person play fucking Doom, and these are new Doom. Like this, Bista's all playing Stardate 26 or something like that. This is someone's just made this kind of thing, and it's incredible. This is Doom. It's like, oh wow, this is really really cool. People make Doom maps. I used to make Doom maps. I wonder if I should make Doom maps again. And again, it was just that seed got planted. And so what I did was I finally joined Doomworld. 2018, February was the first time I created a membership there and posted some of what I thought were the best work of the last mapping stint. It's like, just see what people thought. If there was good feedback, that'll encourage me. If people were like, this is ugly, well then I'd probably park the idea and would have walked away, and that would have been fine. But there was some positive responses. It's like, maybe I should try this again. And if you go back to the maps that I started making in early 2018, there's some good ideas there, but they're pretty rugged. Like there's definitely some flaws. But I think because I had enough kind of like technical experience with editing, I didn't have to learn how to make a door again. I didn't have to learn how to make a teleporter closet. I could play with 3D floors. All those kind of like technical elements were still there in my brain. I had to refresh a few things, but it wasn't too hard to get back into it. So I started doing that, and then I discovered GZ Doom. So I had been mapping for Z Doom all the way up till about mid-2018, and I discovered GZ Doom, and I was just like, dynamic lights exist. And I actually agonized over whether I would wanted to map around dynamic lighting. And anyone who knows me now is like, Bridge is all about the dynamic light. But I actually had this fucking like almost a minor crisis. So I'd always manually draw shadows. I was obsessed. I've always been obsessed with lighting, but I love the control you have where you can draw your own lines and control what the lighting did manually that way. And I was just like, I don't want to leave that behind, but dynamic lights are pretty cool. They do make things a bit easier as well in some cases. And I made that transition. And I was in a frenzy that first half of 2018. I look back and I was like, holy shit, I made a lot of maps. And this was all just me mapping, but I was posting screenshots, and I started a dev thread on for Age of Hell on Doomworld, getting a bit of people saying cool things. I was like, yep. So I got that extrinsic motivation as well to go with the intrinsic, and that was a big booster. And I was like, yeah, riding the wave. And then I got invited to join the Elementalism team, which is definitely one of the premier Doom projects that's going to come out. You think about things like Supplice or Age of Hell. Elementalism is definitely up there in terms of quality. Some of the best mappers going. Objectively awesome. It will stun people when it comes out. So getting invited. I hadn't released a map at this point. I posted some cool screenshots, but I got these people noticed, and Dragonfly was a part of that at that time. He dropped out because he got involved in Proteus, which is 100% fair enough.
I would leave too.
Yeah, it's like no, I understand that. But so the Dragonfly, Ball, Dreadnought, like these names, even I knew Dragonfly's name was big, and that was a huge personal self-esteem boost, and like holy shit, I must have some sort of skill here. If these people kind of think that I'm worth engaging with, and there's a bit of an audition process, and I made a thing, and then made first attempt at a map for that project, and they're like, no, this is fucking awesome. And that was a real kick for me. And yes, it was a huge moment, I think. And I built on that and got more involved in the communities. And but my first map that I released was for Joy of Mapping 6, which is essentially a speed mapping event that Jimmy, the legendary Jimmy, Mr. Paddock runs, or has run in the past, and it's aimed at new mappers. Anyone can map for it, but it's to give new mappers a place to come and learn, master the tools to a degree, but spit out a map quickly and get a map out there, which a lot of people struggle with, particularly early on. And that was my first map, a 3-day speed map that I made for that. And it was rough. There's definitely some issues with it, but people liked it, and I was like, that was fucking fun. I'm going to do more of this. And you talked about Bastion and how I got there, and I think by the early 2019 was when the Slaughter Spectrum came out, which was my first solo project. And again, there's definitely flaws in the designs, but it was like, here is the Bridgeburner design trope. This is what you see. Here are the curves. Here is the lighting. Here is the dark, moody atmospheres. Here is the big palace-y kind of structures. Architectural precision, weird designs on the floor just because they look cool. And while I was inspired by other mappers, it was definitely something that hadn't really been seen before. And it also combined a Slaughter style of gameplay that was normally reserved for Boom and like really hardcore maps like the Sunders and Asphalt and things that Bemused makes. Is another really good mapper. And it's like one, GZ Doom Slaughter maps weren't really a thing. It probably shouldn't have been as novel as it was, but it was novel enough to get a write-up in, not Jabba, who's a Cacowards committee member, wrote something called The Roots of Doom Mapping in 2019. Very, very cool article. Definitely recommend going and hunting it down. It's about 40,000 words. It's a proper essay exploring the history of mapping up until the present day. And like it breaks it down into like 12 kind of eras of mapping. And in the final one, it talks about Adventures of Square, like this total conversion, completely new game in the GZ Doom engine that's still reminiscent of Doom, but its own beast. And it's unbelievably cool. And a couple other things. And then at the bottom, the Slaughter Spectrum. And he called it the Nouveau Hardcore. And it was just like, whoa. Me? Trendsetter? Okay. And because I got an honourable mention that year for the Slaughter Spectrum as well, which was really cool. But it was that article, I think, that made me really think, okay, maybe I am onto something new here that I can kind of tap into and generate some energy around. And yeah, maybe it does become a new mapping style. The fact that this kind of like objective observer picked up on it, someone I've never really interacted with before, and who is very knowledgeable about all things Doom. And I think that's interesting enough to write about. And then at that point, it was just more of the same, iterating my designs. And Bastion of Chaos. So last year, because I've been involved in all these quite a lot of big projects, HL Elementers, and there's a couple other ones cooking around. And I was like, no, I'm going to make a map, one map, mine, and make it the best thing I can make. Put all of my energy into it, all my creativity, think really hard about combat. Everything I've learned over the last 2 years, I'm going to put that into practice and make a singular edifice and release that and see what happens. There was the idea in the back of the mind, maybe a Cacaward winner, because I'm getting an honourable mention the year before. But that wasn't the sole focus, and I'm just going to do the best I can possibly do. And that map took like a good 3.5 months to make. There's hundreds of hours in that, and that's the Bridgeburner way, unfortunately. But yeah, immensely proud of Bastion of Chaos. That couldn't have. I don't think I could have made hope for anything better at the time. And the effort paid off.
So that's a good point to kind of transition into our first ever fan question. And I've never done this before. I'm not sure how it will look in the future, but since you're my little guinea pig, let's try it now. I'm going to send it to you just so you can read it off in case you don't understand what I'm asking as I ask it. But Immorpher, who, first of all, we have to shout out Immorpher.
Legend.
Is the best dark ambient composer ever, and is the biggest Doom 64.
He is Doom.
If there were a dick,
he is Doom 64.
Immorpher would be the biggest whore in the world. Let's put it that way. But he asks, slaughter maps are a style unique to Doom, and perhaps Serious Sam, which we could delve into that, but I don't think it's necessarily relevant. Do you enjoy the first one you played, or did you have to grow on one over time? That's the first part of this question.
Yeah, so up until relatively recently, I'd say I was not a particularly skillful Doom player. There was a moment probably in 2019, early 2019, I think, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but it would have been 2019, where I got involved helping Insane Gazebo test Sunder, and Sunder is up there with some of the hardest stuff ever made, and it was a real baptism of fire. But the reason that I wanted to help IG and get involved in that was because there's been a few WODs that have really informed my design style, and just like these epic, grandiose architectures. And Sunder was one of them. And the other one at the time, which I played a similar moment, was called Death's Vault, which is this amazing single map. You start in a tech base and descend into hell. And it's got like religious iconography. It's you look at it and go, well, this wouldn't be out of place in Age of Hell. It's unbelievable. It's huge cathedrals, like massive vaulted ceilings. Amazing one. It's still one of my favourite things to look at. The thing with those kind of visual designs, they tend to be full of a lot of monsters because you've got big spaces. You can't just put 3 imps in it. It's going to be boring. Some maps are exploration focused and they can get away with it by having slightly different gameplay styles, but historically and commonly, if it's a big space, it has a lot of enemies in it. So these maps would be full of monsters, like 4,000 monsters in a single map. I was nowhere near good enough to beat them. So I played through these maps just with God mode or mods on to make the gameplay easier. And I would just blow the shit out of enemies, not playing properly, but just admiring the architecture and the chaos. And like the first 4 or 5 times I played Sunder would have been with God mode on. And just looking at it, thinking, no one is good enough to ever beat this. This is impossible. How wrong I was. So, gameplay-wise, Slaughter wasn't my favourite to play in beats, but I loved the kind of environments that allowed it to happen, and I loved the chaos and the hordes of hell. You look at the thing about hell is Legion, endless. This is them presented to you. Go fight. You're not fighting. Classic Doom is very much small numbers, and that's still a very common and popular gameplay style. There's nothing wrong with it. But for me, the idea behind hell was part of that Legion, and I really enjoyed that as a concept. So when I started making maps, I would make these decent in 2018. But so earlier since I'd make these big spaces and I'd fill them with stuff, and it wasn't a conscious decision that I really enjoyed Slaughter. It was almost an incidental side effect of the spaces I liked making. from a visual perspective, because I've always been a very visual mapper. I map first for geometry, and then I think about what kind of combat I can. And sometimes I have a combat idea that I want to work with, and I'll start with that. But broadly, for me, it's more important for me personally is what a map looks like and how does the space feel and how does it make the player react in terms of like their emotions and when you've got these big gloomy caverns and huge marble palaces and stuff, and people go, whoa, like that's what I'm trying to create. It's a bit of a meme at times, but this combat is secondary to me in terms of what I like to make. I know it's important, and I know if you make bad combat, people won't like your maps. I know it's very critical to get it right. But personally, as part of my drive, it's a bit much of a muchness. That's probably a little bit harsh, but it's definitely below visual presentation for me. That's a good question. So while I didn't enjoy the gameplay per se, because I didn't play it with, just go back to the question, because I played it with cheats, but I enjoyed the effect it had on me.
And Morpher actually asked a lot of questions to you, so I'm going to try to lump them in because they're all kind of relevant to the conversation. What advice would you give to someone who would like to enjoy slaughter maps but is currently used to that slower pace? And I think from his perspective, the Doom 2 style map or the Doom 64 style map.
Yeah, so there are easier and harder slaughter maps. This is definitely true. You don't want to jump into something like Abandon, which is a new WOD that came out, but it's very, very hard. The latest Thunder map's brutal. There are tiers. So there are, if someone was to come to me and like, what kind of WOD should I play to get into slaughter? There are ones that are more gentle, shall we say, to new players. So there's an older one called Rush, really good introductory slaughter. I'd actually say the Slaughter Spectrum is definitely introductory slaughter. And then there's like Bastion of Chaos on lower difficulties is very accessible. Hang Up to Rough, I did put a lot of effort into the difficulty balancing because Ultraviolence is brutally hard. But I wanted to make sure it was open to be played by as many people as possible. And
even I was able to complete that map on the easiest difficulty.
Exactly. And I've heard from people who don't like Slaughter say they really enjoyed playing it on I'm Too Young to Die. And I had it all tested by people on all the difficulties because I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I would enjoy UV. But so and Rubix is another mapper. He does more like micro slaughter stuff, but he does really good difficulty balancing in his stuff as well. So there are definitely ways to get into it if you're interested in terms of what WODs to play. And it's just do a little bit of research, talk to the community a bit, talk to people who like slaughter, and they'll lead you to these three WODs are a good place to start. And if you like that, well then there's these ones that are a bit harder, and then there's these ones that are a lot harder, and you can work your way up the ladder. And I think part of it is you need to push yourself. You need to actually be slightly uncomfortable all the time. And because you're playing stuff that you can beat easily, you're not going to get that much better. If you're playing stuff that you struggle with, obviously you don't want to get your shit kicked in for 5 hours because it's just going to be unfun. But you want to actually feel like you have to think, and Slaughter involves a lot of thinking.
It's one of those very divisive topics because it could be. It could be like I'm signing up. I'm trying to get better at Doom. I want to get my shit kicked in, or it could be the guy that's like hey, I've got a 30-minute lunch break, and I'm just trying to get a little relief.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to blow some steam off. And honestly, your maps are not for that guy, right?
No.
Scumhead's maps are for that guy, and we can dig into that later if we need to. But I really think that's an important division in the marketable part of game.
Yep.
Right. So, I personally want to talk to you about the monetization model of what you do, and obviously you make a good. I know what I make from Twitch, which is stupid considering what I actually do. I've already said I hate streaming, right? So, with that said, because you've just founded Hellforge Studios, I believe, as of this week, if I'm not mistaken.
New enterprise, yeah.
And I'm curious, what the actual idea of what that will be is, and also where you plan to monetize with the current projects that you have on, if at all.
Yeah, so it's generally no secret these days that I want to turn this into a career. This is a goal of mine, and so
That's what we should.
I think there's definitely enough positive support for that makes me certain that it's an idea worth chasing. There'll be struggles. It won't be easy. Fucking heaps of work, but it's the first time I've been driven to try something career-wise. So it's like if I'm only going to try once in my life to like be passionate about my job and choose what I want to do in like a really direct way, this will be it. And if it doesn't work, I'm okay with it. I can still hobby map. I can still like make a game and sell it on the while I'm doing my other job. Like it's not the end of the road if it doesn't work. So if it fails, and I can say hand on heart that I've done my best, I'm completely fine with it. I'll be sad, but no, that won't stop me from continuing to create content. So I've had that thought process. But when I started making, so we'll start with Age of Hell. When I started with that, I had no plan of this. So Age of Hell will always be free, 100%. You'll never have to pay for it. And there's a variety of reasons for that, but it will stay a completely free product for those who wish to get it. But there will be ways you can support it. So like say I stream on Twitch, so people can support me directly through that, and that's my kind of like my brand is through Twitch, and that's people giving me money via that. That's for me, and that'll do things like I'll upgrade the stream equipment. I can just bought a standing desk, fund my craft beer addiction, and it will be it'll be a revenue. The idea is to turn that into a revenue stream to help support me to live long term, kind of as a side gig adjacent to producing games. But there are ways to monetize the product, so things like a Patreon or donation schemes, like people who want merchandise, people who want to contribute to Age of Hell and actual game development. There will be paths that will be opening up in the near future for that, because it is something that that people have said, why is this free? I want to give you money. So there will be options for that, and for people who wish to support directly game development elements, and it'll be used to, like for Age of Hell, be used to commission promotional artwork and pay some of the people who have contributed to date. There's been thousands of hours from people helping me, so I'd love to give something back to them. They joined the project knowing that it's a passion project and it's done for love, but it would be awesome if I could just give them a little token of appreciation back, and I'll make it clear that the money raised via these avenues will be going to these kinds of things. They won't be. The idea is not to use that for myself personally. So people who don't want to donate via Twitch to me, but they want to support the game, there'll be these paths, and hopefully that can build up into something, and that will be then used to fund future endeavors when I do make a commercial product. Because you'll need you need capital for that. So that's Age of Hell as an entity. But you mentioned Hellforge Studios, which is an idea that have been bouncing around for a few weeks. And the initial premise is obviously I've got a bit of a public profile now. Hellforge is one of the bigger classic Doom communities going. Let's use that to help other people and promote their works. So Elementalism is a good example. They have there's a private dev server for that, and they've got a Doom World presence and a ModDB presence, but they don't have a Discord server. There's not a place where people can chat about the project, and this is a big project. Or Sunder, again, there's no just space where people can talk about it and ask good same gazebo questions. I thought, well, we can create that space for people who don't have the energy or the time to run a full server, but keen to get a bit more publicity. Let's create an avenue for that. And then I can do things like play it on stream. I can shout them out on Twitch. I'll help with playtesting. And, these are things that I've personally endorse. And hopefully, Hellforge Studios becomes a bit of like a stamp of approval. People can recognise that as there's an objective level of quality here as well. Just because I put the idea in the server, I was like, do you guys think this is a good idea? And it's just like roundly positive responses. So I was like, okay, I might be onto something here. So that's the initial premise. But the idea is for that to become a commercial entity in the future. Commercial games that are released will be released under that banner. I will register it as a company name, which I've already done a bit of research on, and it'll be a trademarked entity. And long term, there is a very ambitious, let's admit, goal of mine is to turn it into a game studio, doing the same thing that I'm doing for Doom mods now, doing it for commercial games, kind of like New Blood. Obviously, that's a very long road, but if I can build up this amount of publicity just making Doom mods, then what can I do if it's commercial stuff? Like, there's that idea. This was kind of secondary to the initial concept of like helping other people and promoting their work. It's like, this could grow into something else. So this is a bit of a dry run, essentially, for that concept. And it will always have that side to it. I'll always, as long as I'm involved in Doom, I will be using it to freely promote other people's Doom, because that's where I got my start. I love the Doom community. They fucking make so much good stuff, and they need more publicity for Doom is always good, and there'll always be that completely free, helpful, and hopefully useful element. But I'm curious to see where this builds to in the next kind of 5 to 10 years.
I'm personally very excited to see what you do when you're like in, Unity or Unreal 4 or something like that, where you have a lot more freedom. Doom is beautiful, and me, I'm all for the Doom Total Conversion project. Like, I'm here supporting you because I think that Age of Hell is going to be game changing. I thought that Hedon was game changing, and I feel like people miss this. Like they see like, oh yeah, Doom 2, whatever. They don't understand how significant it is that you are building a commercialized game in an engine that is not only that old, but old is kind of the side conversation. Like the fact that it is fucking free to use. Like you can just do whatever the fuck you want with it. Like that is what's important here. We have an engine that is capable of creating fantastic games that people have 20 years of experience in working in, that is monetizable. That, to me, is what's worth writing home about. That's what you want to like. If you're in the trenches, that's what you tell mom. You don't tell her, like, hey, mama, I'm about to get shot by a Nazi. No, you don't say that. You say, hey, mama, I'm about to make $1 million. That's what's cool.
Because there are a couple of projects coming out, Sulaco, potentially Supplice, like that I think are heading down that path. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out that they are paid for products and they look 100% worth paying money for. Eventually, the Square, to be honest, should have been a commercial product. So there are some out there, but you're right, there's a bit of a conception that it's just a Doom mod. It's just a Doom conversion.
You're preaching. Preaching.
So I think you're going to see a little bit of a shifting of perception around that in the next kind of couple of years, as things like Supplice, Age of Hell, Sulaco pop out, and it's like, well, this is essentially a derivative of the Doom engine, but it is a new game, and it's marketed as a new game. Like I'm now referring to Age of Hell as a game, not a Doom Total Conversion. It was, 2 years ago, it would have been fairer to call it definitely a Doom Total or Doom Conversion. Now it's not. And these other games, they're completely new games. Yes, they're inspired by Doom. There will be, parallels in the way that they play because it's in a Doom-based engine. But they're their own beasts, and I think the way that they're being promoted on places like Twitter, they're like incidentally associated with Doom these days, and I think that's a good thing that they're distancing themselves from Doom as a core concept. It's like, no, this is Supplice, this is Sulaco, this is Age of Hell.
I mean, what have I been sitting here doing? I've been trying to talk Jimmy into making money for a long time.
Yep.
Make money. Like I
should join you, like the amount he hates money.
I mean, Jimmy would be a perfect fit in over at fucking New Blood. Talking about New Blood earlier, like if you hate money, be Jimmy. Like,
yeah, definitely.
serious. Just be Jimmy.
Well, he's had a little bit of an epiphany recently, so hopefully we'll see more of Jimmy promoting himself in his creative works. And like, because he is making midis for Proteus, so he is getting some of these breaks, which is really good because he fucking deserves them. And he is objectively talented, and he should be making money, lots of it, for what he does.
Look, I'm sure Jimmy will listen to this. It's not that Jimmy should be making money; it's that the entire team that worked on Adventures of Square should be making money. Like, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
He could be making enough money to pay that whole fucking crew.
Definitely. Matt Tropiano, Zaza, Pavera, all of them, like, immensely talented. And, the way it was set up as Big Brick Games was the company that made it. There's a couple, like, I don't know if it's a registered company, there was essentially an entity that promoted the product. It's like, why is that not bigger? And even if it's just like making a shirt, like, why is there not Adventures of Square merch? I want to buy Square on a t-shirt, it's I think because Jimmy and these other guys involved in Adventures of Square are old school Doomers. They do come from that age of Doomers for free. And WADs for it, even if it's completely new assets and it doesn't use anything from ID that is intellectual property, there's an expectation for so long that it's free stuff for the community, and that is a strength. That is a good thing. That's why there's so much great stuff being made for Doom that you can play for free. But I think it is important to realize once you reach a certain level, it's like no, this is more than this is by itself bigger than just a Doom map. It's a new thing. It should be pushed as such. And Adventures of Square is probably one of the first ones, I think, that had that vibe. It feels like a new game, and you should think of it as a new game, not a Doom wad. And there's obviously parallels and comparisons and references, and it has a vibe kind of similar to Chex Quest, but it's so much more than that. And I really hope...
I threw a few names out there just to talk about like the pioneers of that, of what I think is going to be what makes you a lot of money, if you don't mind. Total Chaos. That's regardless of how you feel about the game. That game
high
is
quality.
like a total conversion up and down, and it could easily be remade in a different engine,
Definitely.
which is up to Sam to decide.
Well, Mr. Cat worked on that.
But Mr. Cat's done fucking. We're gonna talk about Mr. Cat later. This could be a long fucking podcast unless you just like leave me in the middle of it, because I have so many questions for you. But Total Chaos, like redefine. Like, what the fuck can you do in this engine? Holy shit!
Yeah. You can actually do anything you want. Like just to briefly mention, Mr. Caddy, like he has made 2D side-scroller platforms. He's remade Undertale and Doom. He's made Raiden DX shoot 'em ups. He's made Worms in Doom that's playable online. Like, you can literally do anything in Doom. The new coding language Z script allows it is a game engine. It is, and it's actually a pretty fucking good one. People joke about not joke, but like there's a perception that GZ Doom is bad performance, and if you look at what I've made. This actually runs pretty good. Yeah, they are pretty taxing maps and stuff like that, but you can really fucking push it in ways that other engines, you can't have 1,000 enemies and fighting you at once in Unreal. It'll destroy things. Computers will be set on fire.
The question, Bridge, is not what can be done in the engine, right? It's what the people who expect a certain amount of performance to come out of said engine can provide the computer to handle.
I think it's
sorry,
go
ahead, please.
I was going to say, I think it's
the guest here.
Some of that perception element about a new game in GZ Doom as an engine. There is a perception about how well Doom should run. It should be buttery smooth. Like Doom shouldn't tax a 15-year-old computer. Should be able to run like that kind of. There is still that attitude from a lot of people, and particularly with people who use some of the older ports, which are very much Doom-based, Doom engine derived, like Boom, limit removing stuff, Chocolate Crispy, all those kind of things, which are all very fine products and do their jobs really well. And like people that go, oh, but your Doom map's now playing at 55 FPS. It's like, well, that's actually still pretty fucking good. Like, original Doom ran at 35. What are you complaining about?
Better than fucking Doom.
Exactly. So
35 FPS.
I played Doom 3 at 15 FPS.
Take your tampon out.
I played Doom 3 at like 10 to 15 FPS because my computer couldn't run it. That was fine. I played Doom 16 when I got that at 15 to 20 FPS. I didn't have any issues with that. I knew what I was getting into. I was playing. People don't complain that Doom Eternal doesn't run on their 10-year-old computer. There's an expectation. There's a managed expectation there that it's going to require a certain amount of computing power. And I think I've actually done a big part of that, of managing that expectation. These maps are not going to run on your 10-year-old rig, or not well. You need a decent computer. You need a certain level of hardware to be able to
that will change. Bridge, knowing that will change when you put it on Steam and you set the minimums. You're
exactly.
Like, these are the minimums to play this game.
But I did that with Bastion of Chaos. I said, you will need, this is what the kind of performance you should expect from a computer that has a 1060 GeForce. And then I released the low spec version and I said, this has been run successfully on a 680. So I gave some benchmarks. And I had very, very few comments around performance because I managed the expectations. I got the one person who gave me shit for performance. Turns out they were running a mod, which was tanking FPS. So because
shout out to Major Arlen.
because you can, if you manage those expectations, people don't then try and run it on their 10-year-old computer and complain about it not working properly. So yeah, I think we're a bit of a watershed moment. I think around GZ Doom as an entity, both in terms of like we're talking about, making actual games out of it, and also just what you can push that engine to do. I'm really excited to see what people can. And like the other thing that's gone hand in hand with that recently is the editor Ultimate Doom Builder has had some really, really massive tool improvements over the last year, and I could rave for days on end about the quality of that product and the dedication of the devs to that, and that is a huge part of why my maps look as good as they do, is the tool that I get to use. It is, I challenge anyone to show me a better editor than Ultimate Doom Builder.
I mean, there are going to be Trench Room people out there.
Trench Room is pretty fucking good too, and I do salute that as pretty much as similar kind of level of quality, and masters of it can extract amazing things like Tears of the Fallen God for Arcane Dimensions, and the fact that Chris Holland is making Graven and Trench Room.
That's what I was going to actually say, is that like if you were to make that transition to Trench Room, the market itself of what you could possibly accomplish.
Well, it's funny you say that, because Doom Builder has a model export function, and someone has exported Bastion of Chaos into Unity just to see if it works, and it does. So after hearing what Chris is doing, it actually started a cog whirring. I was like, can I create a similar workflow path from Ultimate Doom Builder to Unreal 4 or Unity? Build your base geometry in Doom Builder, use what you know, export it, and then put in your functional elements after. Obviously, it's not going to do everything, but in terms of you can do height mapping in GZ and Ultimate Doom Builder. You can do like full 3D structures. It all exports as a model, despite the slightly kind of hacky methods in terms of the way things get set up in the engine for GZ Doom. It will export all of that as a model, single entity, or whatever you select. It's incredibly powerful, and it definitely got some cogs whirring in my head about what we can do with that. Even if it's just like, instead of using Blender to make a model, make it in Doom Builder, and then export it, make your own door. You can make textures. You can do so much as a resource creation tool. It's opening up a lot of opportunities, and I think you're just starting to see some of the real creative people putting these tools to use. Like Ball, who's the project lead for Elementalism, has just made a rotating set of stairs with platforms. There's chains on cogs. Holy fuck, it is insane. All made in Doom. it doesn't look like anything that belongs in Doom. And he is a freak when it comes to like moving parts and using scripts to create dynamic environments. He's probably one of the best people I know for that kind of stuff. And like seeing what he can do when he put his brain into it, I was like, this is pretty fucking insane. Insane Gazebo. He's certainly breaking new ground in terms of his visual designs for UMF and Age of Hell. And these tools have only been around for a very short, maybe a year for some of them. Give another 5 years, holy fuck, what are people going to come up with? I'm very excited.
So let's get back into the original question of, with Hellforge Studios, what do you see yourself publishing? And what would that product look like to the audience?
I think it would be primarily FPS focused. It might branch out, but I think it depends a little bit on where the market is in, say, 5 years' time. So at the moment, we're in a real golden age of FPS, but that also results in a glut, market saturation, oversupply. So people see this golden goose and they want a piece of it. They want to get on the bandwagon, blah, 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 all those cliches. So we're kind of heading to that with some of these products. But there's still a lot of really good stuff being made. Your Ultra Kills. So Dusk and Medieval came out very much the forerunners and still probably like the benchmark for me, at least, in terms of quality. I know you've got different opinions, but I fucking love them. And you can't deny what they've done to kind of retro FPS, boomer shooters, if you will.
I'd say Dusk in terms of gameplay, a Medieval in terms of level design.
Yeah, agree.
Anybody could take the Medieval's level design away.
No, and a Medieval, even as a bigger Medieval stan, a Medieval's gameplay is a bit meandering, but the visual presentation is fucking phenomenal. And
it's as if you worked on a game.
Exactly, and like I shamelessly have copied the Medieval designs. if I was like 5 years ahead of my career, I would have a Medieval would have been that game that I'd love to have worked on. I just missed that boat, unfortunately, because it's a Kiwi company too. For variety, so Dusk gameplay is incredible. Visually, a little bit more simplistic, although some of those Escher levels and episode 2 with the Gore-Tech, fucking phenomenal. And then Medieval for its visual presentation, but in terms of like the impact they had on the market, and on gamers, people are like, oh, fucking hell, these are great, old school styled FPS. Pretty straightforward. Don't have to think too much. Lots of fun. Cheap. Runs on relatively low end machinery. Awesome. So the market was born out of those two. I think. I don't think I can really name anything that came before that that had that kind of impact. And then things like Proteus started building up, and it's a bit of a snowball effect. And then we've got things like Ultra Kill and Viscera Fest, Wrath, Supplies. I feel like Supplies is transitioning. People don't realize about Supplies has been worked on for over a decade, and it was just going to be a Doom project. But because Mechadon kept it very much below the radar, it can make that transition to a paid commercial product quite easily. So I think there's definitely still a lot of really good stuff being made, but there's going to be a bunch of middling quality products, and there is a chance that will tire people out. But as long as there's like a good chunk of like cream of the crop kind of material, like say even like 20% of releases are excellent, I think that will continue as long as people keep having fun with them. And I think part of the attraction is the price point of these products. They're cheap games. Even if you didn't enjoy it, $10, $20, whatever. That's you buy a AAA thing for $100 or New Zealand dollars, and it's bad. You're like, well, fuck, that was a waste of money. But if you buy a $15 game and you don't enjoy it, it's like, that was lunch out. That's not a big deal. So you can experiment and find things, and there's lots of communities around like discussions about why people like various games, and you can get a good feel for it before you try. And there's demos and all this really accessible products out there. And so, provided that all continues, that will be the kind of thing that I think Hellforge Studios would focus on, because it's what I know as well as a designer. And there'll be hopefully a team, but there'll be like, I'll make judgment calls like, yes, this is a product worth supporting. And I feel like an FPS, I will be able to make that call better and easier than a different game style. So that'll be where where the focus is put first.
some of the best advice I ever got was just like, don't set out to make your dream product first, right? Try to make something that you can sell for $5, $10, $15 or whatever on Steam. And, maybe you won't make $1 million. Maybe you'll make a few $1,000s. It doesn't matter. If you're trying to build a house, right? Build a fucking fort first in the
That's
woods,
good advice.
right? Yeah. And so, like, if you're trying to make a game that's going to be epic as fuck, right? Which your games are going to be epic as fuck, period. But if you're really trying to make that like dream project that like is going to require you to transition engines, to hire 3D modelers, in Bastion of Chaos, and especially in Age of Hell itself's situation, because I know that you have a lot of people kind of like helping you out and working on it and all this kind of shit. If you were trying to pay all of those people for what they did, right
go
now,
bankrupt.
virtually impossible.
Yep.
But if you want to get to the point where you can make that kind of game or a better game, you're going to need to have some capital up front, right? Like, and so right now, invest in what you can. Like you're really like I look up to you as someone who's like, this guy's genuinely really smart. Don't commercialize that game. But get everyone's name out there, right? Provide them with the opportunities that will come along with such a published product. And then when that's done, they'll probably all have opportunities that you can't even pay them to do. You'll be like, oh, fuck, man, I want you to work on my next project. They'll be like, but
you're busy with 3D realms. Shit.
You is like nothing in comparison to this money that I'm being paid now. Fuck you. I'm kidding. But hopefully they'll be like, hey, where did my first big break come from? Bridgeburner.
Well,
something to the.
You are actually.
Go ahead, please.
Like, this is exactly what I want to do, and I've already talked to a few people, and like, there's a few key individuals within the Age of Hell project that I would like pay all the money I had to keep with me, and I will do everything I can to get their names out there and promote it. Like, Mr. Cat flies out. He doesn't have a social media presence at all. It's like, fucking set up a Twitter.
Can I ask you a question about Mr. Cat?
Primeval, he's going to be writing most of the OST. He's the next Andrew Holshop, easily. He's arguably better, actually. He's unbelievably talented. It's like, why do you keep doing this for free, man? Why are you making millions of dollars? Sorry, what were you going to say?
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask you a stupid question that Morpher threw in about Mr. Cat. And I want you to just like answer this question quickly and then go back to what you were saying. So the question was, do you feed Mr. Cat Whiskas or Friskies?
Whiskas. Friskies went out of business here.
That answers that question.
And so there are definitely core individuals that I want to take with me as kind of like the core team, like kind of how New Blood has those artists on their roster that kind of help out other games and stuff, like we've discussed. I love that idea. I think that's great. It's like, here's this great concept you've got. You're this little dev. We think yours is a project worth supporting. You're lacking this kind of key skill in your repertoire. There's someone who can help you. We will help you make these models or make your game sounds or tweak your weapon animations or whatever, because we've got these expertise on the books that we pay a salary to that are just there to help. So that idea I very much like, and one of the primary reasons that I want to keep these people is to work on the things that I want to work on, but then provide these expertise and knowledge and skills to people that might not have access to that. And
that is the New Blood model.
Yeah, it's a great model. It's an incredibly good model. It's obviously very profitable for them, but it's also really good for the game creators. Like, holy shit, we get access to Andrew Holshop. Holy shit, this is incredible. I'm nobody, and like, but he's going to come help you. And so I think that model more so than maybe the 3D Realms model, that business model I really like the idea of, and we'll see how that goes. And but the primary focus will be to release stuff myself. But if I can build my own portfolio and games that I'm making while building a kind of a larger commercial entity, I think that'll be a lot of fun.
I'm just gonna retackle this with a few fan questions because actually, dude, honestly, you've got a lot more than I expected. People wanted to know shit about you. So we'll start with okay. Nationwide Moose wants to know, what does your dick taste like?
I know, I've never tasted it myself. Yeah. Probably like no, I was not expecting that. I have no pithy answer. Tell them to come and find out.
Okay, all right, that's your answer, Nationwide.
Yep, come and find out.
Flambeau wants to know, if you were to give him some money to purchase his mother-in-law, how much would you feel willing to give?
It depends. Does he like his mother-in-law? Is it someone that he wants to get a nice present for?
No.
No? Okay. In that case, probably about $7.50, because then you can get a bit of a mean gift, but nothing nice.
This is the best. I really expected
Then
this
what
to
does
be
your dick taste
show.
like?
It's actually fun. Okay, moving on to serious questions. I can Nationwide Moose, just a shout out, is the head of the United States Quake community. So he seriously, he loves what you do. He's a huge fan of Doom Wad. In North America, there's no bigger curator of people playing multiplayer Doom Wads than Nationwide Moose.
No, I am familiar with Nationwide Moose, so it's not a complete out of the blue question.
Tackle on that, Flambeau, another administrator for Z Damon, which I know is not your game, but what they've done for Doom is irrefutable.
Yeah, definitely.
And they love you, seriously.
Characters one and all. I love it.
All right, we'll move on. Flambeau's next question is, how hot is my wife on a scale of 1 to 10? And I'm going to say 10. I think Janine is super hot.
I'm going to say a solid 8.5.
Sight unseen, 8.5.
8.5, yeah. It's like when people ask you, how old do you think I am? There's a safe number to pick. It's about 23. If you don't know, just say 23. It doesn't matter what you actually think. That is the number you pick. If they look 70, say 23.
I'm never going to do an episode without opening it up to fan questions from now on. Really, we're actually moving on to the serious questions.
I said that last time.
Sorry.
The trap.
Zan. Okay, Zan. You know Zan.
It's Hedon Deve. Yeah.
Zan the Bridgeburner.
Yeah.
For real, though, how do you get the builder to not crash every time you draw a line? This is a real legitimate question. So
there are a couple of ways, because obviously it's well known that I push the limits in terms of line counts and high fidelity design and ridiculous architecture. So one thing that I am definitely known for and really, really fucking anal about is architectural precision, being really accurate and eliminating. There's a lot of very little discrepancies that can lead to bigger issues if you leave them unattended. One of them's overlapping vertices, when you copy paste stuff in a radial pattern. If things aren't quite lining up, the engine won't merge those vertices, and quite often even when they are exactly the same, they still won't merge. So you have to go back and tend to them. And there was another bug issue that I discovered recently when I was making Bastion, is when I got to a certain point, trying to save the map while building the nodes would then cause Doom to crash. So there are things that you do hit as you get bigger and bigger, and you just got to manage. Error checker is your fucking friend. Use it all the time. Make sure you're not, particularly those very short lines. Eliminate as many overlapping vertices as you can. The GZ Doom is good. The node builders are good, but they're not infallible. And normally, when you're getting a crash on save, it's a node builder issue. And I've found a couple of odd other bugs that have caused issues on saving. One around poly objects, having too many of them in a map. But it's 99% of the time it's your node builder. So the pro tip for when I was having the issues with Bastion, and this, I'm so glad that I found it. It's so unintuitive though, is to turn it off. So when you go into the configs, down to node builder, select none, both for saving and testing. Then let GZ Doom build all the nodes. This only works for GZ Doom. If you're having issues in Boom or another format, you're out of luck. But GZ Doom builds the nodes every time you reload the map, which is kind of weird, but helps in this instance. So Bastion of Chaos has no pre-built nodes, none. It still loads in a normal amount of time, or no longer than it would for a map that size. Really unintuitive solution, 100% worked. And I know a few people have had to do it as well. So turn the node builder off and see if that helps. But also error checker, spam that.
All right, next one. Could you just read this verbatim?
Uh-oh.
Can you read? That's the biggest one. Can you read?
I think I can remember how to do this. Happy belated birthday to Bram and Maria.
So those are Flambeau's children.
Oh, very nice. I hope you said happy birthday to
And
yourself. To Flambeau.
I owe them both belated birthdays, and this is cool. This is a cool way to do it. So, next one is Moleke Trerau. Moleke is a particularly interesting guy. He has so he's Brazilian, right? He has translated a vast amount of arena FPS games into Brazilian Portuguese to be sold to that market.
Nice.
And just an amazing guy. Former podcast alumni as well. But he paid his way in here, so let's have him let him have his question. If it hasn't been said already, how much of your time, your free time, like outside of your personal job, do you allocate to daily making content for Doom?
One of the I talked a while back about how many hours I've done streaming, and while that's not all mapping, but a lot. So probably on average on a good week, probably 30 hours. Probably squeezing 20 to 30 hours of mapping a week. Is kind of like what I aim for. I don't always get there. There's weeks that are lower, weeks that are higher. But I do try and put in a lot of time into it. It is the maps are not quick to make. So like I said, Bastion of Chaos, there's probably about 400 hours of effort into that over the space of about 4 months. Is probably a pretty accurate estimate. There's literally thousands and thousands of hours of mapping into Age of Hell, and I would never normally recommend to mappers to try and force themselves to map. It's usually a bad idea. Trying to break through creative blocks, when you're not feeling it. Putting yourself in a situation where you don't have the juices flowing. It's normally a bad idea if you just trying to do this for fun, because you just won't enjoy yourself. But because I want to do this as a job, I have to be able to map when I don't feel like it. You have to go to work when you don't feel like going to work. So one of the things I've been experimenting with, like I had a month off work over the Christmas break during the lockdown period, and it has been putting in like a work week of mapping. And even when I'm not feeling it, I'm going to sit down, do 8 hours of work, and get shit done, even if it doesn't feel like I want to. I'm still going to do stuff, because there's always I find there's always even if you don't really know what you want to do next in your map, or you're a bit dry with the creative ideas, there's still shit you can do. There's textures you can tweak, alignments you can fix, little bugs that you can address. And normally what happens, I'll just start doing some of this easy, low thought kind of stuff, and you get to the flow of things. An hour later, an idea's popped up. And it's I think it's definitely kind of a known thing about me that I get ideas very easily. and I can put them to work very quickly. I'm a little bit strange in that regard. Mapper's block just isn't a thing that happens to me, which I'm very fortunate and immensely lucky, to be honest. That's how I work. But I really really push myself to map a lot, and the risk of burnout is there, but we've been going kind of 3 years deep on this road so far. And I'm still here with plenty of energy, plenty of drive, plenty of ideas, there's map ideas that I really want to put into practice that are for Age of Hell episodes that won't be up for 3 years kind of thing. So that's part of why I do it so much, as well as all these things bubbling in my head that I want to put into practice and show the world.
And I think that's a really admirable trait, and it's not something that everyone possesses. It may be an introvert quality, because I too possess this. The ability to look at a blank slate, like look at something that, like, okay, I don't think that this is going any further, and to just take your free time outside of your work time, which you said, like, I had free time off work, that kind of thing, and say, what can I do with this amount of time? And I think this is a lacking quality, and I don't mean to sound pretentious or critical of anybody who doesn't possess this, but like for me, free time is like an opportunity. It's like if I'm not at work, I can do what I want to do, and until I'm fucking dead tired. I mean, like I'm falling asleep, or else I'm going to develop cancer. Like basically one of those two things. I'm working. I'm going in hard. And yeah, I know that you also possess that. That's a parallel that we kind of draw.
Yeah, like it's that kind of focus that I've given. Like normally I'm obsessed with like a single computer game, and I'm like, there's been like, and I'll be like, play it religiously, and that's not work. That's definitely fun. But it's that kind of focus. It's time. It's like, but this is what I want to do. This is what I'm focused on. I'm going to dedicate all the time that I can to it. And you could write that off as a bad trait, playing computer games all day, and potentially shirking other responsibility, and all that kind of stuff that goes with your classic kind of gamer nerd, burrowed into their computer. But that is something that I've been able to harness. And I'm fairly certain, because my brother's got Asperger's syndrome. There's definitely autistic traits in my family, and I had some of them because I watched my brother grow up. I was like, I used to do that when I was his age. And one of the traits of people on the spectrum is focus, single-minded dedication to a single thing, and that's not a bad skill. It can be seen as bad because you might neglect other things or other people or whatever. But if you can harness that focus into things, and I think I've managed to do that with this mapping dream, is be unequivocally focused on it. I still have fun. I still play games, and I recognise the need to take breaks and that kind of stuff. But it's always in there in my head. It's like, what am I doing next? What am I going to work on? What's the next goal? What's the next milestone? So like for the end of the year, when I had that month off, I wanted to get the demo Age of Hell version of Bastion of Chaos ready. I wanted to get that video ready for the Hasbunel reveal, and there's some serious goals, like we're going to get these done. And it was probably a good 100 hours of work in 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks that I had to do to get it up to scratch. And it's like, no, this is my goal. I'm going to do it, and I did it. And there wouldn't have been any issues if I hadn't. But this is my holiday, and I was like, I fucking worked hard, but it was fun. It wasn't a struggle. It was just something that I knew I wanted, and I knew that I couldn't waste time. I couldn't procrastinate. So, no, we're going to get into this pretty quickly if we're going to meet these kind of self-imposed objectives. It is an oddity, I think, about people like us, and it is a double-edged sword. There are things negative elements to it, but if you can make it work for you. And I've seen that in other creatives, like using kind of, don't want to use the term kind of like mental disabilities, but that people with OCD or manic depressive, bipolar disorder. So like Devin Townsend, the amazing musician, he's got bipolar. He channels his kind of like high states to be ultra productive because he knows when he's in a low state, he's not going to be it.
is another great example. Same thing.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I've got energy, let's get shit done. And he made 4 albums in a year, in one year. And so he can manage his, let's say, quirks and use the strong elements of it to his great success. But there's a price that he will pay for that in terms of like his low moments. But he's learned to live with it. He's kind of like someone who's at peace with that within himself. Mike Portnoy, the drummer for Dream Theater, he's got OCD. And he's like very particular about a lot of things, but he used that to manage when he was in the band, Dream Theater, like manage all their tours. And he would make sure that if we'd been to the same city twice, we're not going to play the same songs because he had everything that they'd ever played ever and anywhere, like in a big catalogue. So he used that part of himself as a strength. I'm sure it made his life difficult in other ways, but if you can recognize these elements within yourself and put them to work, I think it's a hard thing to do, but if you can, you will be definitely a better person for it. It's
I agree with you 100%, man. And to have a really kind of in-depth conversation about that, if we have to, the stigma of mental health is such a problem within the creative community because, I mean, look at indigenous societies, right? What do they do? What do we do? All right, and I don't really know how to categorize you because you're a fucking Kiwi, but like Western society, right? What do we do with schizophrenic people? We just write them off and we say like you're fucking crazy. And in America, fortunately, we put them on the streets. Literally put them on the streets. Like, and we just ignore them. We don't make eye contact.
Or in an insane asylum and lock them in a box and abuse them.
Yeah. If you're lucky, because that ended in the 80s. Yeah. If you're lucky, you end up in an insane asylum. What did indigenous people do? Those people, like schizophrenic people, were shamans. They were the most revered people in the whole fucking community because they were like able to kind of go on that journey with people who are going through a really hard time. They're like, I can put myself in your situation, man. I can like see the world you're going through. Yeah. And, like a psychedelic trip or whatever, if that's something you're into, they could go on that ride with you because that's the world they lived in.
No, we could probably have a whole other podcast about how, like I say, Western society treats people with mental health issues. Because like in New Zealand, there's been a big campaign around like raising awareness. Like this is it's really common. If you feel like this, there's like a third of the population that are the same kind of thing, and it's okay.
I'm speaking from the point of view of like I'm me, I'm the motherlode. I'm Ty. Ty has been through some serious PTSD shit and come across the other side, right? My wife, Emma, as you were talking about Devin Townsend, and I brought up Kanye West because Kanye West is a big influence on her Mrs. Motherlode, right? So she's bipolar.
Right.
And I don't think she wouldn't mind at all me talking about it because she's like very open about it. But I've seen what that's like for someone. And it is it's not an easy road to travel.
No.
But I know what she's capable of when she harnesses that energy and she says like, I'm going to use this to make the world a better place. And what you're talking about exactly is like, with the Asperger's, with the autistic spectrum kind of disorders, we often in society, in Western society, I would say specifically, write those people off and say like, they're not meant to fit into this.
Oh, they're just a difficult child, and they're just just socially awkward, and therefore we're not going to interact with them, and we're just going to, like you say, push them to the side and ignore them because they're not normal. Quotation marks.
Coming from the career field I'm in, man, I'm in weather.
Nobody's fucking normal.
Like some of the best people I know, like we'll talk about like my personal experience for a second, but then we'll go into gaming. Some of the best damn weather forecasters I know are definitely on the spectrum. Like, definitely. Like, there's no way you could understand the shit you do if you have anything else to think about, right? Like
It's like you are weirdly focused on weather. Yeah. people talk about how
trigonometry comes to me so easily.
Albert Einstein had autism and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how much. There's a lot. Like you look at these weird smart people.
Isaac Newton.
There's something going on in their head. But they use that. For good.
Yeah. You harness it. You don't look at someone like that. Like shout out to people out there in the world. You don't look at someone like that and you say like you're useless. You say what
are you good at?
Talents do you possess that I can harness?
Yeah,
Mozart, Beethoven, all these motherfuckers. Any hyper focused person.
Yeah. There's something weird going on.
I'm not saying they're autistic. Yeah. But they got something they have to prove, right? Like they've got something going on. It's you clearly have something you need to fucking prove to the world that is not measurable by the normal modern standards. And that's something I really want to impart here. It's like, Bridgeburner, you're a fucking freak of nature. You're not a normal person.
No, I am not.
In terms of game development, you're an Olympic athlete. And when you look at the people that we work with, right? Like Mr. Cat, we bring him up. We bring up. I'll bring up my team, like Gelma-san, definitely an ADHD candidate. Gelmo, like these are fucking people who are so amazing and so productive and so useful. They just need to meet the right person who can fill that void.
Find the right person and find their passion. And be able to I think one of the common things you'll see through all these these kind of success stories around people with should we say mental quirks is they found what they want. They found their passion. They found something to focus on. If you have no focus, and this kind of goes for everyone a bit, you the kind of normal people can drift through life to a degree, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you're happy, just kind of going to work and coming home and having a beer and going back to work, go for it. If you're happy, fuck yeah. People should always be happy, and I'll never begrudge people their happiness. And but if you're a little bit different and you feel directionless and you get distracted easily and you might do some dumb shit and you feel kind of pent up and but you find that one thing that really clicks with you, and whether it's helping Motherload make podcasts or running a Quake the US Quake community or whatever, or making maps, when you find that thing that makes you get very excited, and you can put all that energy into this thing, and it just feels right, and then I think you find your wider life settles down because you're not the energy's not just dissipating out to the world and being all chaotic. It's going into this thing, and you can take all that excitement and jittery passion and put it into one receptacle essentially, and then harness that power. And you'll go to work the next day going, "Oof, man, that felt good. I got a lot done last night. Yes, I was up to 1 a.m, but fuck, it felt good. I'm a little tired today." And you're just much more chilled the next day because you've managed to kind of tap that big bubbling reservoir of excitement and chaos and put it into something. And I think you just find that your life will improve. Preaching to the choir. Freaks to the freaks. You're all awesome.
Of course. These are the people who make shit fucking happen.
Yeah.
And that was a hard conversation to have. Sorry.
Let's go on though.
This is my show. I'm used to being on your format, which is I gotta be all right, I gotta let Bridge talk, all that kind of shit. This is my show.
This is your rodeo.
So my last two questions that I have nothing to do with anything else this is strictly me. Okay. Number one, you've mentioned publicly that you identify as a Christian, which I think is great. How do you reconcile that with being the face of Age of fucking Hell?
It's an odd juxtaposition, and I'm surprised no one's actually really asked me about this before. Because I have said it publicly, but I don't advertise it. I don't proselytize. I'm not an evangelical. Like I said before, I'm an introvert. So, but it is a part of my life, and I'd be lying if I didn't say it was less of a part of my life now than it was, say, 10 years ago. But it's still there, and I still identify as it, and kind of believe the core tenets. But so there are a couple of reasons behind it. One is I think primarily, and again, shout out to my parents. While I grew up in a Christian household, it wasn't super rammed down our throats as kids. And my youngest brother has recently had, well, not that recent, a couple of years ago now maybe, but essentially like a bit of a crisis of faith and is now identifies as a bit more of an atheist. Mum and Dad were completely fine with that. There's no sundering of the family or anything like that. And I think that says a lot about them. Because my youngest brother, he's an incredibly smart, like freakishly smart character. Like he's one of those like annoyingly perfect humans who's lovely, charismatic, freakishly smart, driven, like just won the genetic lottery. And but so he could reason it out, he'd explain it, and like so it was a very thoughtful process for him. And yeah, so that happened. So I come from a pretty, actually certainly by American standards, a very liberal Christian household, and which is good. Like it's very relaxed. I still clashed a few times when I was growing up, and like the first time I got drunk, Mum was too impressed. But it was also because I was the oldest child, and they had me when I was 21, so it was all a bit. I was definitely treated strict, and I think that was more part of it. Was just I was the first going through all these milestones. So when my sister got drunk for the first time, Mum and Dad didn't really give a fuck.
My fucking parents are, man.
Yeah. So I
swear to you, I was
fucking
child,
sibling drift. Sibling drift is a thing.
It's like crazy. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? Like,
yeah, but you chewed me out when I did that 10 years ago. Why are you being so relaxed on my brother? Yeah.
Little brothers over here just fucking up, and I'm like, Mom, what are you doing?
It's like, you were fine. They'll be fine as well. I think fair enough. So no, it's annoying at the time, but I can understand that, so that's fine. So that's my background. Is I come from what you'd call as a very liberal Christian upbringing, and which is good. And it's still part of it instilled a lot of values that I still hold to, and so there's that element. So the liberal side of my upbringing in terms of religious household. But the other one is I don't actually see a clash between the like Age of Hell and Doom and like let's call it fairly satanic imagery, because I don't see it as like I'm not glorifying it in the sense that it's an ethos that I'm supporting. Like in Doom, the joke is Doom is a Christian game because you're beating the demons. That kind of holds true. Maybe it's not a Christian game, but it's certainly anti-demon. And Age of Hell is the same thing. Your protagonist, you're fighting hell. And while I absolutely adore like hellish imagery, the emotions it evokes, the awe-inspiring nature of it, the horror, the oppressive, like kneel before me kind of like. I think that's so fucking epic. It's more like from a fantasy perspective for me, I think. And I don't see any there's no internal clashes really drawing down on that as a design trope that I like and my own personal beliefs. There's a couple obviously I've taken the pentagram as kind of like my icon now, and there's a little like that one is probably the only thing that is like would I get a pentagram tattoo? But itchy. Yeah, so that is a little bit of a thing that I've been thinking about, because as you know, Uncle Had's working on a logo for me, and it's got a pentagram in it because it really couldn't not have a pentagram.
Yeah, Uncle Had is available for hire. He is the designer behind the Keep.
Yep.
He is my best friend, and also he's working for you. So that's actually a beautiful thing.
Oh, he's great, and he's so easy to work with. We could talk for hours about how awesome Uncle Had is. I know, he's great. I definitely recommend him. He's very easy to work with. So that's probably the only personal kind of internal conflict. It's a small one that I've had. It's I wouldn't mind getting my logo as a tattoo because I like tattoos. But would I tattoo it myself with a pentagram? That feels like a step. Interesting question. Like I said, I think you're the first person to actually overtly ask that. I'm sure it's been thought about.
Yeah.
So, short answer is no.
I'm just gonna briefly. It's a hard topic, and I grew up in a South Alabama, very overtly Christian. My grandmother's going to listen to this, so I'll probably get a phone call afterwards. But, I grew up in a very Christian, strict Christian kind of ideal of how the world's supposed to work. And from a very young, I was the only, when I was 9 years old, I remember telling a girl, I am not what your definition of a Christian is. I remember saying that, like in the hallway of like a classroom, or of an elementary school, which is I think kind of young to even have that kind of thought.
Definitely.
But I was like, I definitely don't identify with what you believe in, and I was sort of ostracized from that point on. From that part of what was my society at the time. And I want to be very upfront. I am down with Jesus is cool as fuck. Like Jesus is, if you're not down with Jesus, you're a piece of shit. Because Jesus is awesome.
It's pretty hard to like. You look at the story, you're like, no, you were pretty on the money with a lot of what you said.
He like really hit. Yeah, he was on the point. For me, I mean, I kind of lean towards. Zarzu is another good example. Another member of your community. We talk a lot about paganism and her beliefs. And so when I hear you say shit about like I have questions about the pentagram of like, what is that, like, what does that mean for me as a Christian? That kind of thing. My immediate pushback is like, that symbol has literally nothing to do with Christianity.
So I'm cognizant of that. I am like definitely like there's an older, there's a much older
You're a
symbol.
smart motherfucker. You're an idiot. Yeah. I'm like, that has nothing to do. That was Constantine's fucking problem.
Yeah.
Like Constantine had to somehow convince everybody in Europe that paganism was bad.
So
and equate that to Christianity. That's not you. Like,
so
you don't have to worry about it.
It's a visceral reaction. So it is part of that upbringing thing, and like the way that the pentagram is presented in modern society as this symbol of Satan, evil, whatever. So it is a guts instinct reaction. It's not a cognitive reaction. So that definitely resonates with, because I'm a big fan of Live and Let Live, and I think I'm actually probably like technically slightly agnostic, because I view other religions as equally viable, and I can't see why they can't all be different reflections of the same divine being, whatever, divine entity in the universe, whatever the overarching overlord thing is, that there's no fucking way that humans can comprehend. And sometimes I wonder, like, does it actually exist? But there's zero chance that any human in the course of history has ever understood it in any way, shape, or form. And you look at something like religious texts, like, I view the Bible. The Bible is widely viewed by historians as a relatively accurate historical document. Whether or not you believe, the miracle sides and the supernatural elements, that's a personal thing. But as a historical document, it is pretty accurate, and it correlates with other historical texts. Jesus existed. He was a person. Whether or not you believe he was the Son of God, well, that's again, it's a personal thing.
Doesn't matter. He was dope as hell.
He was, exactly. So, his teachings, the words he said, like, they are objectively pretty fucking solid.
He was a really smart guy.
Yeah, that was just sharp. And he hung out with everyone. Like, lepers, tax collectors, prostitutes, you're all people. We love you. And that's, and we could get into how twisted Christianity has become. That's a different conversation. But so that whole personal,
we're not here to talk about that.
No, that's a different podcast. But that whole personal journey element, and I like the idea of taking a symbol and making it your own for your own reasons as well. And this is mine, and I like it because for these reasons, the X, Y, and Z. This I identify with this, and it's just whatever you associate. Like you said, I'm not your Christian. I don't believe in the same things you believe. I got it. Like that. If someone said that to me, it's like, cool, sweet. You believe, we can discuss that. But what do you believe? What would be different? Let's just chat about it. That'd be cool. As opposed to like, you're different. You don't adhere to my very strict, constraints around beliefs. Therefore, you are no longer a person that I view as worth associating with. I fucking hate that kind of stuff, and it's a real blight on society. We could, we could talk for hours on such things, but I view that as a good thing. Like, you saying that I would say is a good thing if you say that to someone, because it means you kind of where you differ with someone, and that's not a bad thing. Having a different perspective is not a bad thing, and that's again going back to I view different religions as reflections of a similar concept, and you can go into the roots of Judaism versus Islam, and where they came from the same core, like the three Abrahamic religions. They all grew from the same seed. Like you can dig into this really interesting perspectives, and there's a lot of similarities between a lot of religions, and I think that's worthy of discussion. And you could have a few beers with someone and talk about it. Like great, and part of that is talking about your differences, and variety is the spice of life, and you'll hear different opinions, and that's actually quite interesting. That one thing that you said, I might think about that a bit more. I'm not going to fight you because you have a different opinion to me. I'm going to listen to it and consider it, because debate, arguing in its purest sense, is something that I really enjoy. I like talking to people with different opinions and having a good, honest discussion, good, honest and friendly. But let's hash out this concept, and either you'll walk away feeling more firm in your ideas because you've been challenged and been able to defend it and go, no, I still think these things, or you'll come away with a seed of something else, and it will help you develop. And you'll go, that was actually very interesting, and that might worm into your brain a little bit, and you'll think about it a little bit more. And then you go back to that same person, that thing you said, it's actually stuck with me, and we should just explore that idea further. And that is the art of ideological spread in a good way. And that's why I hate political discussions on Twitter, because all you can do is shout at people. No one's fucking listening. You're just shouting at each other. You're not going to change minds via that medium. You're gonna grow as people when you sit down around a kitchen table with a couple of beers with your mates and discuss things. That's the kind of place, the environment that these kind of conversations grow you as a human, as opposed to going out there into the broad world and putting on your battle armor and going to war. That's not.
That is why I prefer podcasting to other mediums. It's like we can have a conversation, right? Like I can say, like, "Hey, Bridge, man, I think what you said is great." Like, I have nothing bad to say about that.
Well, you can ask a question like, why the pentagram versus your Christianity? How does that work? Like, you can ask a pretty complex question. I can't explain. You ask me that you could ask that question on Twitter. I can't answer it on Twitter. I can't do that in 140 words.
True. but it's truly like a topic. It's like,
that's interesting.
Let's really dig into that. Okay, all right.
Fun talking about it.
There's nothing about the pentagram at all, unless you just believe that it is the symbol of Satan that stops you from using it as a Christian, because it's truly just its origins are so completely not what the modern idea of it is. But whatever, fuck all that. The whole point of this conversation was to transition into the real topic that I actually want to talk to you about, which is heavy metal.
Hey, there we go.
And this will be the last one, and we'll go to bed. Or I'll go to bed. You'll go to your brother's birthday or whatever. I actually do want to start off with black metal, because that's where I come from. And I've had a lot of very interesting topics with you live on stream that I hope that the world never actually has to revisit.
Fortunately, VODs only last for 2 weeks.
That's true. I try to, because of esports kind of shit, I put it on YouTube as quickly as possible. But yeah, that's a good thing to lean on. You should keep that as long as you can. Heavy metal meant the world to me, man. I remember I was maybe 8, 9 years old, and I was this is not something that's going to shock me. I know my parents listen to the show, so I have to be cognizant of that. But I was in a really shitty situation when I was about that age, and they know that. And I remember playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater number 2. We're gonna say 2. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about the actual soundtrack. But the Ramones and AC/DC. were on that soundtrack, right? So like our Blitzkrieg Bop, I believe, is like one that really stands out to me, and TNT by AC/DC. And while those are not heavy metal songs, those are songs that are like
they're adjacent.
hard rock, like
enough
to give you that little kiss. And I started my first band at that age. Like I was like, I want to be in a rock band and I want to play this kind of music, and I have no idea where that came from. But those were the songs that like sent me on that path. And where did your initial interest in heavy music come from? You mentioned very early in this interview that you had a friend who got you into metal, and who is also a Doom mapper. Where does this come from for you?
Yeah, so like I said earlier as well, like I grew up in a household that was very passionate about music. Like mum's played the guitar for I don't know, fucking 40 years or something now. Dad used to play the drums. Most of my siblings have played instruments. Like we and again, it wasn't a thing rammed down because it was an environment that we grew up in, and it was just an interesting thing. Music is cool, and I actually firmly believe that raising kids up in a household with lots of music is an objectively good thing. So Dad was probably my earliest influence on my music. He listened to a lot of R.E.M. and Midnight Oil and U2 and Dire Straits, like real solid classic rock kind of stuff. Really good. Like U2's a bit of a meme now, but like old U2's fucking amazing. Yeah, awesome stuff. Like still really good music. And Midnight Oil in particular is one that I've really held on to as a band that I love. I just really like their tone for some reason, and singing style. R.E.M. as well is very cool. Mark Knopfler's an objectively amazing guitar. Eric Clapton was one of Mum's favourite band guitarists. Very fucking cool, and lots of good stuff. Just really good, solid classic rock. And so that's what I grew up listening to. And probably the first album that I actually got really obsessed with as a kid was Jeff Twain's War of the Worlds, the rock opera. So that was my first touch. Like we're talking like when I was like fucking 6 years old, I would listen to it on repeat endlessly, and that's probably looking back now, I was like, well, that was my first taste of prog, because mum and dad weren't big Pink Floyd fans, which I'm surprised by in hindsight. Bit of Led Zepp, but not Pink Floyd so much. And but War of the Worlds was a really fucking big impact on me when I was young, and I actually listened to it again on stream last weekend. I was like, oh fuck yeah, all the memories came flooding. That was great. So that was the base, and that's a good base to work from, I think. And so most like up until the age of about 13, that was mostly the kind of music that I listened to. There are other bands that I get involved in, kind of like general rock bands, and yes, some Christian rock. There's a band that I still very much like called DC Talk. That I actually started off as a rap band, which I wasn't a fan of that stuff, but there's a couple of albums from them that I you call them pop rock these days, but I really enjoyed as a kid listening to, and then you're gonna laugh at this. But fucking Creed. Their first two albums are still really fucking good. Yes, like Scott Stapp became a bit of a meme, because like talking about mental issues before, like huge amount of sympathy for the band. But he's like, and Creed gets a bit of shit for some of their like real like balladic, big vocals, and it is a bit cheesy. Let's be honest. But their older stuff is very crunchy, and Mark Tremonti is actually one of the world's best guitarists. You listen to his work with Alter Bridge, his solo stuff. He's still churning albums out. And so the other members of Creed formed Alter Bridge with Miles Kennedy as a singer who is objectively a god. So that was my intro to heavier music, like you with AC/DC. That was like, ooh, this is the distorted guitars. Ooh, I quite like this. But still with the melodic kind of rock core. And and then like in Human Clay, which is their second album, there's a couple of tracks like What If, is actually still pretty fucking heavy, like really, really chunky. Good headbanging tune. And so I listened to that, I thought, this is pretty fucking cool. And then I still remember this very vividly. This is back in the days where like fucking MTV played music. But New Zealand is a channel called Juice, and it was a music channel. And I Disappear by Metallica came on, which is their Mission Impossible 2 song. And I thought, this is pretty fucking banging. Watching the clip, very cool clip, great track, still a great track. I had no idea what the band was because I'd missed the very beginning of it. But this is really fucking cool. Just like, it's like 9 o'clock at night, just about to go to bed. Like, I fucking love this. End of the track comes on. Name of the band, Metallica. I was like, oh, my friend has a lot of Metallica albums. I should go talk to him. And he he fucking borrowed his older brother's Metallica CDs and gave like a big sack, like his entire Metallica. Apparently, his brother was not happy. Shout out to Sam Allen, my friend's brother, for not killing his younger brother for taking his Metallica records. So he gave me seriously like all of Metallica's entire catalog in a plastic bag. Listen to this. When I was 15, and I listened to the Black Album, and say what you will about the commercialization of Metallica, that is a good record. Those are good hooky songs.
You hear, there's the hits off that album, right? There's Inner Sandman, there's Unforgiven, there's
yeah, but it's the other track, like this fucking My Friend of Misery, it's Wolf and Man, it's in
Wolf and Man.
Wolf and Man is a fucking banger, man. Yeah,
all day long, bro.
Amazing song.
That's
Sad but true. Like there are some good tunes on that record. And I was just like, oh, music can sound like this. The Christian household thing, Mum fucking flipped out when she found I was listening to Metallica. About 3 years later, she was teaching it to her guitar students 3 years later. So things change.
little side tangent on that. So my mom was a huge fan of Motley Crue. And she had like this kind of like gate, right, where it was like, okay, up until a certain age, I'm okay with you listening to this music, but this music is not okay, right? And the Black Album was one of those records that like my stepdad bought, and he listened to it, he loved it, but it was just like, I don't want my son listening to that shit.
Yeah, it's like,
and my stepbrother was like, because it was his dad. He's like, listen to it. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? That's the sound.
Yeah, it's like, there's something about it.
And it's just like, I don't want you to listen to Metallica. I don't want him listening to Motley Crue, like all that kind of shit. And eventually, my mom's a grown-ass fucking woman now. Like she's, whatever. But that was just like, she wasn't comfortable with that. And then at some point she realized, like, you know what? Motley Crue saying about hedonism and drugs and like all the shit that goes on in life, and I never did any of that shit. So
exactly.
He'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
Right? And first of all, for Mother's Day of, I don't know, 29 or whatever the fuck, 2009, I bought my mom a vinyl of Shout the Devil, which is a black record with a black pentagram on it. If you've ever seen it. And go ahead.
It's a good song. I was saying it's a good song.
Yeah. No, like I remember, like I bought that for my mom. That's when it like clicked for her. Yeah. She's like,
actually, we yeah, this is fine. Yeah. Well, so you say that I have been to several Metallica concerts with my mum. Which I think is just a sentence I love being able to say. I've been to several Metallica concerts with Mum. Yeah, I've been to lots of concerts with my family. It's great. So yeah, but the 15-year-old Mum was not impressed with listening to Metallica, and but that was the start down the road. But there's a couple of other real seminal moments for me musically. When I was flatting, I was 21, and a mate of mine. Came home from work with a burned CD of a band called Blind Guardian, which is a German power metal band. And so at this point, I liked Metallica. I was into like standard heavy metal, like American stuff. Nothing too outlandish, popular stuff that you'd hear on the radio. But I was very much into it, and listened to like heavy rock bands like Trapped and Seven Dust, Seven Dust is still one of my favorite all-time bands. Just fucking love Seven Dust.
You know me.
But he came home with this like European bombastic, like double kick out your ears, like soaring vocals, guitar solo. Like it's like, holy shit, music can sound like this. Like I'd never heard anything like it. And the album theme was all based on the Silmarillion by Tolkien, so it was like fantasy metal as well. I was like, this is so cool, and that just took me down a rabbit hole. And that's I discovered Amazon. I was like, buy CDs through Amazon, all this European metal, like all these other bands. I got big into European stuff. So that was a real watershed moment. And then there was one other. So again, fucking huge shout out to my mum for being seriously cool. she bought me. So she knew that my taste had kind of gotten a bit more heavy, a bit more esoteric. She bought me my first Dream Theater CD for Christmas, probably 22 or 23, and she bought me Train of Thought. And first I said, this is pretty good, and then it was an earworm. I just kept listening to it, and I kept like getting deeper because prog takes a bit of time to get into, and it's still my favorite album. And that was
I got into prog through Genesis.
Sorry,
Genesis, the rock band Genesis, right? I got Phil Collins. I listened to a fuckload of them, and I was like, that. I think that set the precedent for like progressive music.
Yeah.
Even though Genesis is kind of a pop band, like in a way,
well,
they were definitely progressive rock.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
And that's the stage for Yes and for
other
bands like that.
I skipped over all of them. I didn't listen to Pink Floyd. I didn't listen to Yes or Genesis or Journey. All those, or Rush, like all these early, even Led Zepp, which has a lot of prog elements. I skipped over all of those. I didn't, apart from All the Worlds when I was a kid, there was no other prog in my life really until Dream Theater. But Train of Thought was their most metal album as well, so it took the crunchiness of things like Metallica and big heavy distortion and screaming guitar solos and lots of double kick and dark brooding melodies and stuff like that, which they hadn't really done before. And a lot of people don't like it, like they're like kind of older Dream Theater fans are not a fan of Train of Thought, but because that was my introduction and because of where I was coming from musically, it really hit a fucking note. Yeah. And I was like, more of this, please. And that was the beginning of the end for me. That took me down the path of like, what is the, like, it's kind of like, I don't want to use the term extreme, because that is actual genre, although I do love extreme metal, but like more esoteric music, like how creative can people get? Like people who do, kind of like me with my mapping, people who make music for the love of making music and make what they want to make, not because it will sell. And I don't have any issues with bands making music to sell. Metallica making the Black Album to be a popular record, all power to you. Make money. I don't care. If it's good, I'll still listen to it. I'm not a hipster. But those musicians, and there's even more now with like, you're able to like record your own stuff. There's programs you can use at home, cheap/free software. You can distribute yourself on YouTube and Spotify. You can find these like real passion artists really easily these days. I love that kind of stuff, like people experimenting with fusions of genres and tones and just making the stuff they love to make. Listening to Dream Theater set me down that path. And again, fucking huge shout out to Mum for fucking buying me that CD. I'm sure I would have happened across it eventually, but my life would actually probably be quite different. And very fucking different, because I met now an ex, but a long-term partner I had. She was a huge Dream Theater fan. Like I was wearing a Dream Theater shirt, and that's why she talked to me. And like my life would be 100%. I'd be in a different space. Probably still happy, but I wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't be making Doom maps for a start. Mum buying me a Dream Theater album, something as innocuous as that, actually changed my life, which is pretty cool.
I think that is the most beautiful part of life, is the different journeys you get sent on by the art that you're exposed to. And one of those pieces of art, Reg, is yours. So
thank you.
There will be an entire generation of people, whether you want to like look at it like this or not. Like Arlene is one of them. Like, and I'm sure she would 100% agree with me. Like the people that you've sent on the arc that they've been on because of what you've done within the world of Doom has unequivocally, I'm shitting on words here, unequivocally sent people on a journey that they wouldn't have otherwise been on. There are people who are inspired to try Doom mapping because of you. And that's the kind of the, I hoped we'd end here, and that's where we're going to actually land. So kudos to me. What you've done and what you are doing and what you will continue to do with Hellforge Studios and everything is beautiful, and it is absolutely leading people on that path that you just mentioned of, if not for this, I would not be here. There is a lot of people out there who are going to look back 20, 30 years from now and say, like, I wouldn't be where I'm at from, right now. I wouldn't be mapping for whatever company or whatever project that I've worked on had it not been for this guy inspiring me to try to do something that I didn't think I was capable of doing. And that's where I want to leave it today.
Yeah, no, I think that is actually a fair comment. I do try and be careful around that kind of self-aggrandizing stuff. But no,
you don't have to. I'll do it for you.
Yeah, and look, on a related note, and we can leave off here if you want. I wouldn't be here without a lot of other people. So while I am a let's be honest, I'm a bit of a force of nature in the community, and will hopefully continue to be. I've only managed to rise to this level through a lot of talented people, and I definitely count yourself among that. Shining a spotlight on me and engaging, and I'm really appreciative of everyone that I've met, and that has helped me both in terms of the actual work that I'm working on, into projects that I've producing and helped out with and stuff like that, but also just the networking and just ridiculous amount of support out there in the game dev community. I cannot speak highly enough of it. I thought it would be a toxic shit show, but aside from like singular instances with real shitheads, everyone's lovely. It's weird. Where are the egos? It's insane. I just cannot speak highly enough of right up from there, from ultra professionals to indie devs, everyone in between. They just love supporting everyone's work. And it's this great, inclusive, supportive community. So huge fucking shout out to everyone out there making stuff. Whether it's passion projects for old FPS, whether it's your small indie dev stuff, whether you're working for AAA, you are doing great things.
It's a good place to leave it off. Bridge, you've been amazing.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while.
Thank you very much to Bridgeburner for being on the show and being an amazing guest and my friend. I really value our relationship and hope you guys all go reach out to him on his Twitch streams and check out his content, and hopefully, if you haven't already, actually go back and listen to Burning Bridges with Bridgeburner, the 5-hour-long podcast we mentioned in the beginning of this, which I published on our channel here. I also want to say thank you to Primeval for the awesome music from the Age of Hell soundtrack. Absolutely incredible. Just definitely look forward to that. Go ahead and get it on, I think it's on IndieDB, ModDB, something like that. I'll put a link in the episode notes and make sure you check that shit out and get ready to get on it as soon as you humanly possibly can. I got to say thank you to our wonderful supporters. So Paul, Moose Dots, Zach, Alexander, Brad, Red Eyes, Anthony, Robert, Jack, Brandy, Fred, Lord Revan, Tones, Igrex Simon, Immorpher, Brahm, Maria. To you two, I have to say happy belated birthday, and also thank you to Janine and Jeffrey for making two beautiful, wonderful children who are apparently fans of the show. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more. If you would like to be supportive to this podcast, I mean, obviously you can go on our website, inthecube.com/support, and go any way you want with that. There's Patreon, there's all that kind of shit. I've got to stress that the number one way that you can support this show is to tell people about it. Tell your friends. Like, review, subscribe on whatever podcast distributor that you listen to this on, whether that be on our YouTube channel, if that's on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, whatever. Just leave a review. It can be a bad one, it doesn't matter. But if you like it, definitely say something nice. It is greatly appreciated, and it really does help. We also have a new affiliate link. I have talked to you guys extensively before about Buzzsprout. I'm not breaking up with Buzzsprout in a bad way. We're leaving on good terms, but I had needs that they could no longer fulfill. With that, I mean, Buzzsprout is a fantastic service. It always has been. But I have moved on from it because it is not exactly the best thing for saving money when you're publishing multiple different podcasts. If you just want to do one podcast, still highly recommend it. But we have moved the show to a service called Captivate. And our new affiliate link will be to Captivate services. I'm very proud to be on board with them. Again, not a paid advertisement, just we're affiliated with them. If you want to start your own podcast, if you're looking into getting into making lots of podcasts, then Captivate looks really damn good to me. I dig it. I really like it so far, and I hope that you will consider, if you want to sign up for it, going through our affiliate link. But that's all I have for you this week. It's been an amazing pleasure to be able to present this to you. I hope you have a wonderful time. Until next time, stay in the keep.